Chapter 2051. As long as the ability left Zhao Liang's body, 2333 would inform her that the mission was completed. Soon, Ning Shu was presented with the opportunity. Yu Ling's head had been smashed by Zhao Liang. It was said that it was quite serious and had to be stitched up. In such a situation, she had to visit Yu Ling. Ning Shu told Mo Ming about it. Mo Ming was speechless. He rubbed his eyebrows and said, "Your best friend." Ning Shu tried to clear Yu Ling's name. She wasn't like this before. She just fell in love. Pity a girl who can't get out of love. When it came to the person you love, you couldn't stay calm. Love made people blind. I'll be back soon. I've already prepared dinner. If you're hungry, you can have some. Ning Shu picked up his bag and was about to leave. Mo Ming said, "This is the Yu family's business. Don't get too involved. Come back after you've seen it. Otherwise, you'll be blamed. Just do what you have to do. You're not a family." Ning Shu nodded to show that he understood. He drove to the hospital and bought a fruit basket and flowers at the entrance. He asked the nurse about Yu Ling's ward. In the ward, Yu Ling's head was covered with gauze. There were also people from the Yu family, including Yu Ling's parents. Ning Shu knocked on the door. Yu Ling's father stopped talking, but he didn't look good. Ning Shu walked into the ward and put down the fruit basket and flowers. He asked, "Does it still hurt?" Yu Ling pouted. Of course it hurt. There were a few stitches and her hair was cut off. It looked like a dog had gnawed on it. How could she go out like this? Ning Shu comforted her, "It'll be fine soon." He didn't know what was going on with Zhao Liang. Why did he hit her so hard? Yu Ling's family was here, so Ning Shu didn't want to stay. He chatted for a while and left. Before he left, he heard Yu Ling's father say that he was going to teach Zhao Liang a lesson. Originally, it was already a grievance for his daughter to be together with such a person. Now that his daughter was beaten up so badly, he really did not place the Yu family in his eyes at all. Ning Shu came out of Yu Ling's room and went to Zhao Liang's room. He didn't appear at the door of the room, but sat on a chair in the corridor not far from the room. He used his psychic power to penetrate the room. Zhao Liang was pressed on the bed by the doctors and nurses. There were bruises on his forehead. It seemed that he had really hit the wall. His eyes were red, and he struggled with all his might. Several doctors held him down, but it was a little difficult. They injected him with tranquilizers and painkillers. Zhao Liang's expression was very painful. He gritted his teeth and said to the doctor, "I want to do a craniotomy. There really is something in my head." Zhao Liang really couldn't stand the things in his mind, tormenting him day and night, constantly buzzing in his ears. He really couldn't stand it anymore. The doctor was also quite helpless. All kinds of examinations did not find anything wrong with his head, but why did he have to do a craniotomy? It was to open the head. The brain was the most complicated and mysterious part of human beings. If something happened, who would be responsible? There were really too many patients. This one just had to imagine that his head was hurting and insisted on opening his head. It was useless to explain again and again. Zhao Liang saw that these doctors were a little impatient. He really wanted to take a watermelon knife and cut these doctors as if they were watermelons. He had plenty of money. What was wrong with doing a craniotomy? Do a craniotomy. Zhao Liang gritted his teeth and said with red eyes. The doctor said, "I'll ask the director." If they operated on a person who had no problems, something would happen. It was a waste of manpower and material, and it also took up the hospital's resources. After being injected with tranquilizers and painkillers, Zhao Liang's condition stabilized a little. He slowly closed his eyes and fell asleep. The doctor also wiped his sweat. Dealing with this patient every day was tiring. Obviously, there was no problem, but he was in so much pain that he hit his head against the wall, as if he was possessed. Ning Shu sat on the chair and asked 2333, the X-ray vision is still with Zhao Liang. No. Once a host is chosen, it will not be removed unless it is absolutely necessary. Moreover, this host only has some problems with his body. He is not dead. The investment in the early stage will be recouped. 2333 said. Clairvoyance also required energy. All biological activities required energy. Without energy, it was impossible to operate. Ning Shu said, "Oh." Zhao Liang actually wanted to do a craniotomy. It was useless even if he did it. Ning Shu saw that it was getting late, so he immediately left the hospital and drove home. When he got home, Mo Ming was eating. When he saw Ning Shu, he asked, "Are you hungry?" Mo Ming scooped a bowl of medicinal cuisine for Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked around. The whole villa was quiet. At this time, his father-in-law should be off work, and his mother-in-law should be preparing dinner. "Where are Mom and Dad?" Ning Shu asked while drinking the medicinal cuisine. "They went on a trip." Mo Ming said calmly. Ning Shu asked in surprise, "So sudden? How can your mother-in-law let you go?" "I asked her to go." "You are at home. You can take care of everything." Mo Ming took the bowl from Ning Shu's hand and filled Ning Shu's bowl. Ning Shu nodded, "That's good." Mo Ming's mother was like a tightly wound top. If she did not relax, something would happen sooner or later. Some things had to be suppressed. Since Mo Ming was born, it had been revolving around him for more than 20 years. When sleeping at night, Ning Shu transferred some spiritual energy into Mo Ming's body. It was just a little bit. In the modern world, absorbing spiritual energy felt like constipation. Mo Ming asked about Ning Shu's visit to the hospital. Ning Shu said that Zhao Liang smashed Yu Ling's head with something. "This Zhao Liang is a bit crazy." Mo Ming said calmly, "Maybe he is rich, but there are other problems at any time. Maybe he is not lucky enough. Whatever he gains, he loses. The law of conservation of energy. Take me for example. Maybe I am healthy in an ordinary family, but I am not lucky enough to be born in a noble family. I have to use my health as collateral." Ning Shu blinked. According to Mo Ming's logic, she was an unlucky person when she was alive. Her family's condition was not bad, and she was not from a rich family. So, if she wanted a healthy body, she should be an orphan. Ning Shu said, "Forget it. If you were born in an ordinary family, you would not be alive now." If it were not for his family's good conditions, Ning Shu would not have been able to live until adulthood. He would not have been able to live without treatment. However, Mo Ming was right. You lose what you gain, but what you lose will come back in another way. Let's sleep. Mo Ming patted Ning Shu's hand and closed his eyes. His breathing gradually calmed down. Ning Shu took Mo Ming's pulse. There were no changes in his body. His condition did not improve, but it did not worsen either. It was not easy for him to be stable. Ning Shu thought that when he was sick, he was probably a giant baby too. Chapter 2052. Under Zhao Liang's extravagant attitude, the hospital was finally willing to perform the surgery for Zhao Liang. However, this surgery was a little difficult. There was nothing wrong with the skull, so where should they make an incision? When they asked Zhao Liang which part of his skull hurt, Zhao Liang said that it hurt everywhere. The worms crawled from one side of his brain to the other, from one side to the other. The doctor, what should they do? In the end, they circled a spot on the skull and made an incision there. Zhao Liang was about to be pushed into the operating theater, but the hospital director thought about it and decided not to do it. What if something happened to a perfectly fine skull? Moreover, this patient seemed to be related to the chief. If something happened, although the patient paid a lot of money, there would be a lot of trouble. Hence, the hospital did not accept this surgery. Zhao Liang was so angry that he split his legs. Previously, he had been researching and researching. What were they doing? Now, they were saying that they were not going to perform the surgery. The doctor asked Zhao Liang to go to the dermatology department for a checkup. This kind of feeling of worms crawling on the skin was either a skin problem or a nerve problem. How could they open the skull so casually? Previously, they had been mesmerized by Zhao Liang's generosity. However, after thinking about it, there would be more trouble. If the headache was a psychological problem, it would be even more troublesome if the patient still had a headache after the surgery. This patient was also a very unreasonable patient. Zhao Liang, if you don't want to do it, go to another hospital. There is more than one hospital in the world. Zhao Liang transferred to another hospital. Even Yu Ling did not know about it. Yu Ling was very angry with such a huge incision on her head. She wanted to give Zhao Liang a cold shoulder. However, before Zhao Liang could apologize, she could not take it anymore and went to see Zhao Liang. In the end, she was told that Zhao Liang had transferred to another hospital. Yu Ling transferred to another hospital. Zhao Liang did not even say a word to her and left. Furthermore, she was injured by him and he did not even apologize. Did he not feel guilty at all? Yu Ling was so angry that she almost died. She felt that she had no place in Zhao Liang's heart and left secretly. Zhao Liang only had himself in his heart. What a selfish man. Logic told Yu Ling that she should leave this man, but her heart could not let go of her attachment to this man. If she left Zhao Liang, her life would lose its color. Everything would be different. Yu Ling couldn't take it anymore. Rationality and emotion were like a devil and an angel, fighting a tug of war in her mind. Yu Ling felt like she was going to have a headache just like Zhao Liang. Yu Ling's parents had already made it clear that they did not like Zhao Liang. He was a man who was missing a finger, and he was also so cruel. Was it that the daughters of the Yu family would never be able to get married? It seemed like he was the only one who was passionate about it, and his own daughter was the one who was throwing herself at him. In the past, he saw that Zhao Liang was a promising man, so he didn't object to his daughter's relationship with him. Ha ha ha. More importantly, it seemed that many people did not have a good impression of Zhao Liang. For example, the Mo family. It was said that he had caused trouble at someone's wedding. EQ. Yu Ling felt helpless. She couldn't say anything to defend Zhao Liang. Zhao Liang's actions were not presentable. Even though her mother knew that she was dating Zhao Liang, she didn't say anything. Now that she objected, it was because Zhao Liang's actions were too despicable. If Zhao Liang knew what these people were thinking, he would probably curse in his heart. He couldn't even take care of himself now, and these people were still chattering non-stop. None of them had hands or feet. Didn't they have doctors and nurses in the hospital to make them feel comfortable? Didn't they have doctors and nurses? Zhao Liang went to a few hospitals for checkups, and they all said that there was nothing wrong with him. They either said that he should take some antibiotics, or said that he was not sick. How did it hurt? Zhao Liang, fuck. Zhao Liang went around, but no one did a craniotomy for him. However, his headache was getting worse. Since medical science couldn't solve it, Zhao Liang could only ask for help from metaphysics. He looked for monks and Taoist priests. Some people said that Zhao Liang might have been cursed by a goo worm. Zhao Liang. He was cursed in such a scientific place like the hospital. No wonder his head hurt so much. Who cursed him? Like Ning Shu, Zhao Liang offended a lot of people, so he felt that everyone was a suspect. Therefore, he didn't have a specific suspect. There were always some unruly people who wanted to harm him and flocked to harm her. During this period, Yu Ling had been taking care of him. She should know if anyone came in contact with him. If it wasn't for the fact that Yu Ling had kept it a secret and never told Zhao Liang about the incident, no one would have been able to accept the fact that someone close to them had cast a spell on them. Therefore, when Zhao Liang rushed in front of Yu Ling and asked her if anyone came near him when he was injured, or if anyone took his things, or if anyone asked for his birth characters, Yu Ling was surprised. Yu Ling saw that Zhao Liang suddenly asked about these things. She felt that Zhao Liang was a little guilty. She quickly shook her head and said, "No one asked for these things." Zhao Liang saw Yu Ling's guilty look. She didn't even dare to look at his eyes. Zhao Liang felt that something was wrong. He should be the one feeling guilty. After all, he had beaten up his woman. It was a little embarrassing. However, Yu Ling felt guilty first. She couldn't help but ask, "What happened? Did someone really cast a spell on me?" Zhao Liang was furious. He was cursed and Yu Ling knew about it. Yu Ling looked at him holding his head and howling in pain. He was in so much pain that his head was about to be smashed open. She just looked at him indifferently. Zhao Liang took a deep breath. Oh my God, how could this woman be so cruel? Yu Ling was stared at by Zhao Liang's cold and hateful eyes. It was as if his eyes were poisoned. Yu Ling was angry and scared. "I just want you to calm down. You cast a spell on me." Zhao Liang sucked in a breath of cold air again. His whole body felt cold. He had thought of many people who would harm him and cast spells on him, but he didn't expect it to be his girlfriend. Zhao Liang felt that the wound on Yu Ling's head wasn't big at all. He should tear it open a little more. He met a weird girlfriend. She was the best. She cursed him so viciously. His head was about to explode from the pain. After finding out the reason for his headache, Zhao Liang's heart calmed down. He tried his best to endure the pain. However, Zhao Liang wanted to fucking press this weird girlfriend under his body and torture this little vixen to death. Yu Ling's scent kept entering Zhao Liang's nose. Even Zhao Liang didn't know how his nose became so sensitive. Yu Ling's scent was very attractive to him. Chapter 2053. Her body was ready to go, her head was hurting and she was confused. She only had one thought. Go, go, go. Yu Ling was still thinking about how to explain the black magic to Zhao Liang when Zhao Liang threw her onto the bed. Looking at Zhao Liang's passionate eyes, Yu Ling was in a dilemma. If the love goo was discovered, Zhao Liang might leave her. But now, Zhao Liang was so passionate about her. Then, there was a round of sexual intercourse in the ward. But after the intercourse, Zhao Liang felt like his body was hollowed out. It was really uncomfortable. His head was hurting and his body was about to explode. So tired. You cast black magic on me. Where is the black magic master? Zhao Liang was panting heavily. His heart was thumping wildly. His heart rate had increased by a lot. He felt that his entire body was not too good. Yu Ling thought that Zhao Liang wouldn't pursue the matter after she tried her best to please him. She said, "I didn't cast black magic on you." Really? If you didn't cast black magic on me, would my head hurt like this? Zhao Liang wanted to spit on Yu Ling's face. Impossible. I cast black magic on you. It's not harmful. Yu Ling hurriedly explained. Then, she shut her mouth. Get the black magic master here. My head is about to explode. Hurry. Zhao Liang shouted at Yu Ling. Yu Ling felt even more guilty. The black magic master is gone. Damn. Zhao Liang slapped Yu Ling's face. The wound on Yu Ling's head was torn open. Yu Ling felt dizzy and her vision turned black. Yu Ling was stunned. Zhao Yang's life had always been smooth sailing. Then, he would treat women well and show off his charm. But when there were setbacks, Zhao Yang would be the same person who used to complain and blame others for all the problems. Even if they didn't lend him money, it would be other people's fault. They would look down on him and step on him. When he became rich, he forced his former classmates into a corner and didn't dare to appear in front of him. In essence, this was Zhao Yang. Yu Ling's head was buzzing. She had a terrible headache. The wound on her head was torn open and the bandage was wet. Blood flowed down from her head to her neck. Yu Ling touched the blood on her neck in a daze. She looked at Zhao Yang who was about to devour her. "I'm asking you, where did the black magic master go?" Zhao Yang asked Yu Ling. Yu Ling's blank look made Zhao Yang very impatient. Even though Yu Ling's wound was bleeding, Zhao Yang only paused for a moment before looking away. There were too many women, and he would not know how to cherish them. Moreover, the most important thing now was to cure the goo. His headache was simply terrible. In the past, Yu Ling didn't give face to anyone. Even if there were people who pursued her, she wouldn't care. She would raise her chin and tease them. But in front of Zhao Yang, she was no longer herself. She was merciless. After being intimate, he would slap her. "Zhao Yang, scram!" Yu Ling shouted at Zhao Yang. She was seeing stars. "Where is the black magic master? Get him to detoxify the poison," Zhao Yang said with a gloomy face. The headache was too torturous. Zhao Yang felt that he might go crazy if he was tormented any further. "I don't know. Get lost." Yu Ling asked the bodyguard to throw Zhao Yang out. She pressed the alarm beside the bed and asked the doctor to treat her wound. He didn't ask about her wound at all. Zhao Yang was really cold-hearted. Husband and wife were birds in the same forest. They flew away in different directions in the face of disaster. Zhao Yang only had himself in his heart. She was selfish and cold-hearted. She didn't have the money to buy the things Zhao Yang gave her before. The Yu family's assets were many times more than Zhao Yang's. She took it as Zhao Yang's kindness to her. Yu Ling couldn't help crying. Zhao Yang, who was thrown out, was angry. He turned around and left, but his headache was too much. He ran to Yu Ling and asked her where the black magic master who poisoned him was. Zhao Yang had thought about finding someone else to cure the goo, but it was very complicated. Without knowing the specific formula, there was no way to cure it. Only the black magic master himself could cure it. But the hospital told him that Yu Ling had already left and went through the discharge procedures. Gone, gone. Zhao Yang was shocked by Yu Ling's evil heart again. She poisoned him with the black magic master, and now she was avoiding him. She wanted him to die. Zhao Yang went to Yu Ling's house again. Anyway, if the black magic master didn't show up, he wouldn't let it go. The Yu family wasn't a place for Zhao Yang to barge in. The security guards stopped Zhao Yang. The second time, Zhao Yang came with a large group of bodyguards, and there was a big fight. Zhao Yang wasn't afraid at all. It was related to his life. No matter how much money he had, he would spend it. If he ran out of money, he could just open a raw stone. Zhao Yang's shameless behavior almost made Yu Ling's father have a stroke. Even Yu Ling felt that her eyes were covered with shit. How could she have thought that Zhao Yang was a good person? He was still as shameless as ever. Ning Shu and Mo Ming were living an ordinary retirement life. Every day, they just ate and slept and ate. Everyone knew that the Yu family was in such a mess. Zhao Yang seemed to be at odds with the Yu family. He even said that the Yu family's daughter was vicious and poisoned him with the black magic master. The whole upper-class society knew about it. Whenever Yu Ling was mentioned, the topic would be black magic master. People didn't know what to say. In the blink of an eye, they turned from a couple in love to archenemies. Zhao Yang still found out about Yuling-er's black magic master. There was a clever misunderstanding. Yuling-er was the one who did it. But Zhao Yang was having a headache, so he thought that Yuling-er asked someone to do it. Now, he asked Yuling-er to find the black magic master, but Yuling-er couldn't find him. What a cruel person. Yuling-er heard Zhao Yang's words and felt dizzy. How would she know where the black magic master went? Zhao Yang's heartlessness shocked and angered Yuling-er. She felt that she had been cheated by this bastard. Zhao Yang felt that he really shouldn't have a rich woman. Previously, Rou Xueqiao had her eyes on the top of her head. This Yuling-er was even more domineering. She cast black magic master directly. Did she enjoy seeing him bang his head against the wall in pain? She was a pervert. Yuling-er fainted from anger. When the doctor came to check, he found that she was pregnant. Yuling-er's parents were furious. Yuling-er was speechless. She thought of the time when they were in love and she got pregnant. Now that she was pregnant, Yuling-er felt that all the bad things had come together. But if she had this child, would everything go back to square one? With this child, Yuling hoped that this farce would end soon. This was Yuling-er's first child. Yuling-er told Zhao Yang that she was pregnant. Zhao Yang said coldly, "So." Chapter 2054. So. What was this? Zhao Yang didn't want such a vicious woman. He felt that she was threatening him with the child. There were many women who could bear his child. This gave the Yu family a chance to control him. Zhao Yang thought that the Yu family was like those rich second generations. They wanted to get his X-ray vision and control him. However, the Yu family was more willing to use the beauty trap. Those rich second generations used violence. Anyway, if you don't like her, you can't even breathe. Yuling-er felt that Zhao Yang was a beast. The child in her stomach was his. How could he be so cold and casual? Yuling-er was so angry that her stomach hurt. Her heart was full of holes. She couldn't stay in the Yu family anymore. Zhao Yang brought people to make trouble every day. Yuling had no choice but to look for Ning Shu. Ning Shu, Mo Ming. Luckily, the Mo family couple had gone on a trip. Otherwise, Yuling would be even more embarrassed. Ning Shu heard Yuling-er cry and say that she was pregnant. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and ask, "What do you plan to do with the child?" "I don't want to give birth to that man's child." Yuling-er gritted her teeth and said. Zhao Yang didn't care about the child at all. He was very cold and even a little disgusted. Ning Shu rubbed his eyebrows. He felt that he had done something wrong. If Yuling-er really didn't want the child, would she be blamed for it? However, she couldn't control the two of them. She couldn't control whether they used safety measures or not. It seemed that Yuling-er was also pregnant in the storyline. However, she didn't give birth. The reason why Yuling-er persuaded Rou Xueqiao not to go against Zhao Yang was that she couldn't have children. It was good to have a best friend over to give birth to a child. She wanted to form a clique with her best friend. Zhao Yang's harem wasn't as harmonious as Zhao Yang thought. During this period of time, Yuling-er insisted on staying in the hospital alone and didn't let other women go over. She didn't want other women to make their presence known. In the end, she got pregnant. Ning Shu straightened his back and looked at the crying Yuling-er without saying a word. However, if Yuling-er had given birth to a child before marriage, the Yu family would definitely not have the face to do so. However, counting the days, Zhao Yang's body should have started to have problems. The aphrodisiac parasite would slowly consume Zhao Yang's body. Every time they made love, the goo of lust would suck in a breath of air. It was almost the same as sucking in a fairy. Ning Shu really didn't want to see Yu Ling. Every time something happened, she would come. If nothing happened, he would almost forget about her. He would only remember her when he needed her. It was not suitable for her to interact with such a close friend. Ning Shu Yu Ling asked, "Do you really love Zhao Liang that much? Zhao Liang is fearless now, so he doesn't care about you at all. What's the use of crying to me?" In order to make a person obedient, one had to cut off all their support. Naturally, they would be obedient. This time, Mo Ming didn't go upstairs. Instead, he was arranging flowers at the side. Using such a method to chase people away. "I'm a man here, can't you guys have a good chat?" As Yu Ling spoke, she looked at Mo Ming secretly, hoping that Mo Ming would go upstairs so that she could complain to her heart's content. But now that he was here, there were some things that couldn't be said. How could a man talk about a topic that women discussed with other women? In the end, Yu Ling held her breath and left. She felt that Sister Xueqiao was really a good man. At least, he wasn't as violent as Zhao Liang. When Zhao Liang had a headache, his face was ferocious. He was like a crazy beast. That was terrifying. At first glance, a quiet man like Mo Ming was arranging flowers. He was very elegant and made people feel comfortable. Zhao Liang suddenly became rich. He really couldn't compare to these men from rich families. Even the second generation's devil incarnate had his own rules. He knew who he could offend and who he couldn't. It was also convenient to give some money to people who wanted to please him. After Yu Ling left, Ning Shu said to Mo Ming, "Yu Ling has looked at you a few times." Mo Ming placed the flowers in the vase. After losing to one kind of person, you feel that another kind of person is better. Temperament was really something that couldn't be described. Mo Ming looked very quiet. The premise was that his body wasn't well and he was too emotional. Then, his eyes rolled and he couldn't be saved. Recently, Ning Shu didn't give Mo Ming acupuncture anymore. He was prepared to leave. He took Mo Ming's pulse and said, "I feel that your body is much better. You don't need acupuncture anymore. Also, every time I give you acupuncture, I'm scared. You're too skinny. I'm worried that I'll poke your bones." Mo Ming nodded. "Okay. In the future, if the person who entrusted him didn't give Mo Ming acupuncture, it wouldn't be suspicious." As for the medicinal cuisine, Ning Shu wrote down the steps. Mo Ming even saw Ning Shu's book. Ning Shu said, "I'm worried that I'll forget, so I remember the steps clearly." "Oh, it's been hard on you," Mo Ming said. The matter between the Yu family and Zhao Liang was still in full swing. Zhao Liang was on an 4-drip, sitting in a wheelchair and guarding the entrance of the Yu family. Now, there was a child. Zhao Liang felt that this child might be a way for the Yu family to control him. They wanted to tie him to the Yu family and make him a live-in son-in-law. Zhao Liang wouldn't be a live-in son-in-law. So what if it was the Yu family? He would build a wealthy family. The Yu family felt that Zhao Liang was really a bastard. The daughter of the Yu family was pregnant with his child, but he still looked like he had a deep hatred. He had taken all the benefits. What else did he want? Yu Ling was even more determined not to give birth to Zhao Liang's child. They had no feelings at all. Now, there was only a strong hatred for each other. They resented each other for being so heartless. Zhao Liang's head was getting more and more painful. He hated Yu Ling who found a witch doctor to cast spells on him. Despicable woman. Now, Zhao Liang's body was very uncomfortable. He felt weak every day. It was as if his body had been hollowed out. His body was sweating profusely. He had lost weight. He couldn't eat properly and had to suffer from a headache every day. Zhao Liang hadn't used his X-ray vision to earn money for a long time. Not to mention earning money, money was flowing like water. Zhao Liang's assets were shrinking rapidly. The Yu family was ruthless. They didn't want to be controlled by someone with no family background. They directly locked Zhao Liang up. The crime was that he trespassed on private property. He was sent to the police station for a few days. How could a living person be suffocated to death by urine? Then, Zhao Liang was arrested and sent to the police station. Zhao Liang was a little dumbfounded. This was breaking the rules. These people were really despicable. They used such a method to lock him up. Zhao Liang was detained. The Yu family's entrance quietened down. However, the Yu family wasn't quiet at all. The Yu family was thinking about how to deal with the child in Yuling-er's stomach. They were unwilling to give birth. Chapter 2055. Zhao Liang felt that the Yu family wanted to control him, but the Yu family was afraid that Zhao Liang would cling to them because of the child. The Yu family didn't care about Zhao Liang. They were interested in Zhao Liang because he was friends with the military chief. If she gave birth to the child, the father would still be a bastard. If she didn't give birth to the child, at least she would have the blood of the Yu family. But what would happen to her pregnant daughter? It was a dilemma. It seemed that if she didn't have the child, the problem would be solved. Yuling-er went to the hospital and said that she didn't want the child. But the doctor said that Yuling-er's body wasn't fertile. If she lost the child, she might not be able to get pregnant again. Anyway, it seemed that she only had one chance to be a mother. Yuling-er held her stomach. She was conflicted. She had to keep the child, but the father was such a person. Then, Yuling came to Ningshu and complained to Ningshu. If she had a child, would Zhao Liang pester her? Ningshu, isn't this the story of the wife running away with the ball? They would definitely be together. Ningshu didn't say anything. This time, Mo Ming sat beside Ningshu and entertained Yuling-er with Ningshu. The atmosphere was awkward. It was so awkward, but everyone tried their best to act normal. In the end, Yuling-er couldn't stay any longer. She left without saying anything. Ningshu high-fived Mo Ming. Anyway, I don't know what this girl wants to do. Young lives are pretentious, Ningshu said. Zhao Liang was detained, and then people from several parties were mobilized. Originally, it was just a private trespass. Finally, it developed into a gambling matter, and the name of gathering for gambling was attached. There was also fraud when buying the raw jade stone. In short, he could have been released in a few days. But it was delayed for a few months. He had to stay in the detention center for a while. No one could bail him out. Shady. This was shady. This was a covert operation. When did he gather people to gamble? If you want to condemn someone, you can easily find a pretext. In the detention center, Zhao Liang had a terrible headache. He found a doctor to check, and the doctor said that there was no problem. The police felt that this was a way for the prisoner to escape punishment. Zhao Liang. I'm really in pain. That bitch from the Yu family was truly ruthless to have cast such a sinister spell on him. He must have been blind to have thought that Yuling-er's temper was cute. Cute my ass, it was terrifying. In order to get out, Zhao Liang used his X-ray vision to observe the bodies of these policemen. He told one of the policemen that his appendix was a little inflamed and that he should get it removed. Police, not only did Zhao Liang feel a headache, but his body also felt uncomfortable. He was sweating profusely and was so weak that he almost couldn't get out of bed. In the end, he fainted in the detention center. After the police confirmed that he was not faking it, they sent him to the hospital. The doctor said that his body was very weak, as if he was in his 70s or 80s. His body was severely stiff. Zhao Liang, was that vicious woman going to watch him die like this? Yuling-er decided to give birth to the child because this was her only chance to be a mother. As for Zhao Liang in the detention center, Yuling-er didn't go to see him. When they met, they didn't look at each other affectionately. Instead, they looked at each other with daggers in their eyes. Both of them were bad guys. 2333's voice sounded in his mind, Zhao Yang doesn't have much luck left. I think he will be released soon. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, he was going to be released. If he waited any longer, Ning Shu almost doubted that he would stay in this world forever. He spent 5 merit points to locate the hospital where Zhao Yang was. Then, he stayed near the hospital and waited for the moment to be released. Well, now was the time to find an excuse to go out. Looking at the indifferent Mo Ming, Ning Shu was speechless. She really wanted to strangle the neck of this man who was holding her back. He was the person who was preventing her from completing her mission. Mo Ming said, "Why don't you go out for a walk? Buy something, go shopping." "Well, I do want to go shopping. I want to buy some necessities." Ning Shu said. "Do you have money?" Mo Ming handed Ning Shu a card. Ning Shu said, "I have money. Don't worry. Take this. Just in case it's not enough." Mo Ming said. "Thank you." Ning Shu kept the card. Ning Shu arrived at the hospital where Zhao Yang was. He waited in the hospital. When Zhao Yang's problem was solved, he would go shopping. If he didn't buy anything, it would be a waste of the excuse he found. This situation was so strange that Ning Shu felt that he was cheating behind Mo Ming's back. Zhao Yang's body wasn't in good condition, so he had to leave. When a host couldn't bring him any benefits, he would abandon him and choose another host. He would let the host easily marry a beautiful woman and reach the pinnacle of life. "I've left," 2333 said, and then disappeared into thin air. This was 2333's battle. Ning Shu sat in the car and dozed off. Done. Ning Shu was surprised, so fast. It didn't form a system. It's not that powerful. The energy is so. It's like a mosquito's leg. 2333 said with a tone of disdain. Fuck, even a mosquito's leg is meat. She was the one running around all the time. You were the one who took the fruit of victory in the end, and you were still disdainful. Ning Shu squinted. After solving the problem, Ning Shu went to the mall and bought a lot of things. He stuffed the whole trunk and returned home. After Mo Ming fell asleep that night, Ning Shu left the plane and returned to the system space. Rou Xueqiao went back. The next morning, she woke up and cooked medicinal food for Mo Ming. Mo Ming got up and drank the soup. The taste was different. The same dish had different tastes when cooked by different people. After Mo Ming finished one bowl, he filled another bowl and asked, "What did you buy yesterday?" There were bags of different sizes. Rou Xueqiao counted with her fingers and said, "A lot of things. There are clothes for the season, 2 branded bags, and some women's things." After drinking 2 bowls, Mo Ming put down the soup bowl and said to Rou Xueqiao, "Oh, buy whatever you lack. Go out more. Don't always stay with me." Rou Xueqiao said, "There's no one at home. I still have to take care of you. What kind of flower vase do you want today? I'll go cut the flowers." Rou Xueqiao cleaned up the dishes and asked Mo Ming. "Roses." Rou Xueqiao said. "Okay." Rou Xueqiao thought and said, "The color of roses is too bright and aggressive. I think it's better to be simple and elegant." "Then do as you see fit." Mo Ming said, "Cut the ones you like." Rou Xueqiao smiled. After putting the dishes in the kitchen, she went to the flower garden to cut the flowers. Mo Ming stood by the bench under the shade of the tree and watched Rou Xueqiao cut the flowers. She even turned back and smiled at him. A flower was inserted in her ear. Her smile was bright and beautiful. Chapter 2056. Mo Ming looked at Rou Xueqiao in a daze until Rou Xueqiao came to him. Why are you in a daze? Rou Xueqiao asked Mo Ming. Mo Ming said, nothing. Are you done? Yes. Rou Xueqiao said, I cut the lilies today. Not bad. Mo Ming said. Mo Ming's body was at the end of its life. He had persisted for half a year. No matter how much he recuperated, it was useless. His body could not take it anymore. Lying on the bed, Rou Xueqiao grabbed Mo Ming's thin hand. The veins on the back of his hand bulged. Rou Xueqiao's hot tears dripped on the back of his hand. She sobbed and said, Mo Ming, can you not die? Don't die. Mo Ming said weakly, Mom and Dad will take good care of you. If you have a new life, start again. I also want to not die. Some things will come sooner or later. Mo Ming's parents were also crying by the bed. Mo Ming grabbed his mother's hand. My existence has made you tired. I don't know if I can repay you. Mo Ming became even thinner. There was only a layer of skin on his face. He was like a withered skeleton. His eyes were lifeless. He was very calm. Perhaps he did not even have the strength to be calm. Mo Ming's mother could not help but cry. I don't want you to repay me. I did everything willingly. I was too selfish. I knew that my body was not good and it was not fair to the child. But I still gave birth to you. Mo Ming, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mo Ming put his hand on the back of Rou Xueqiao's hand. If I die, you can start a new life. Mo Ming, I just want to be with you. I don't want to start a new life. I just want to arrange flowers every day and do nothing every day. Maybe I can't go to the ends of the earth. As long as you are by my side, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of anything. Rou Xueqiao's tears fell. Although there was no sexual desire, it was a kind of spiritual satisfaction. They did not do anything. They just talked and arranged flowers together. Rou Xueqiao did not pursue any excitement. They respected each other. There was no resentment. They tolerated and contributed to each other. Mo Ming opened his mouth and exhaled. White mist rose from his breathing mask. He looked like a fish that was on the verge of death. His pupils were a little dilated. Rou Xueqiao held Mo Ming's hand tightly. Please live on. I really can't do it. I have to live well. Only by encountering misfortune, injustice, and misfortune would one understand and cherish what one had. She wanted to have a healthy body, but she didn't have it. She couldn't. Resentment, pain, why was it so unfair to him? Since he couldn't figure it out, he might as well not think about it anymore. Since he was about to die, there were some things and some people that didn't need to be said out loud. Beep, beep, beep. Mo Ming's heartbeat became a straight line. Mo Ming closed his eyes and dragged his crippled body. In his 20s, he should have been a peerless talent in the business world or the political arena, but he died of mediocrity. He really wanted to ask why. Rou Xueqiao was in a daze. Her face was on the back of Mo Ming's hand. Her body trembled slightly as she tried to suppress her sobs. The doctor removed the ventilator and covered Mo Ming's face. Rou Xueqiao said, "Let me take a look at him. He still looks normal." He could not face Mo Ming, who had been placed in the freezer and covered in frost before being pushed into the furnace and burned to ashes. Mo Ming was quiet, but he was also alive. Mo Ming was pushed to the morgue. At the door, a pregnant woman saw Rou Xueqiao come out and quickly comforted her. "Sister Xueqiao, don't be sad. This woman was pregnant Yuling her. Her belly was already showing and she was a little fat. I didn't expect both of us to have such bad luck." She met Zhao Liang. Who would have thought that Zhao Liang, who was so glorious before, would become so decadent now? And he was panting all day. Every time she saw the ugly Zhao Liang, Yu Ling didn't want the child in her belly. Zhao Liang, who was nicknamed the King of Stone Gambling, didn't even have a good jade. Although his family had some assets, they were all used up. He kept so many women. Today, this woman wanted to eat steak. Tomorrow, another woman wanted a branded bag. The day after tomorrow, another woman wanted to go on a trip. Beautiful women's hair cost money. For some reason, Zhao Liang still kept these women. It was probably to prove that he was still the same as before. Or maybe he felt that he wouldn't be taken down so easily. His X-ray vision couldn't be used temporarily. After some time, it would be fine. So every time the girls asked Zhao Liang for money, Zhao Liang still gave it to them. He brought his women to many high-end places to spend money. But as time passed, Zhao Liang's X-ray vision didn't recover. Instead, his body was getting worse and worse. When he was sent to the police station by the Yu family, he spent a lot of money and connections to get out. It could be said that Zhao Liang was almost at his limit now. Also, he had a headache. Slowly, he got used to the pain. The black magic master appeared, but he said that he didn't cast any black magic on Zhao Liang. This, Zhao Liang was furious. He had never seen such a vicious person. He completely fell out with the Yu family. Zhao Liang didn't even admit that the child in Yu Ling's belly was his. But he didn't dare to make a scene. He didn't want to be sent to the police station again. Zhao Liang couldn't take out the money. These girls started to leave Zhao Liang slowly. It was already unfair for them to serve one man. But this man didn't have any charm now. What was the point of staying with him? In the past, Zhao Liang didn't want to get married. He didn't want to be tied down by marriage. But now, he couldn't find a girl to marry. Some girls' expenses were very high. If it was in the past, Zhao Liang could still afford it. It was easy for Zhao Liang to earn money with his X-ray vision. But now, who would be willing to lower their standard of living and live a life of steamed buns and salted vegetables? Moreover, these girls were very promising. They were female CEOs and rich young ladies. The strongest relationship was equal. Zhao Liang, who didn't have his X-ray vision, was a man full of resentment. He was a man with high standards but low abilities. Only with capital could he be high-spirited. Zhao Liang, who was in poor health, was dumbfounded. He blamed these women for being cold and vain. Zhao Liang wanted to play and he attracted the same people. Could it be that he wanted to marry these girls from the beginning? At this time, Zhao Liang could only blame others. Zhao Liang, who couldn't earn money, was used to earning money easily. How could Zhao Liang work hard to earn money? But the quality of life wasn't as good as before. Even when he went to the restaurant to eat, he gave a small tip. Zhao Liang felt that the waiter looked at him with disdain. Zhao Liang was just that sensitive, especially since he was missing a finger. Chapter 2057. He had no money, was not handsome, could not earn money, was not willing to work, was disabled, and was not in good health. Zhao Liang cursed the heavens for being unfair. Why did everything turn out like this? Then why did they give him X-ray vision? Why did they take it back? Were they toying with him? Damn the heavens! Everyone was against him. Even the heavens did not want to see him. Did they want him to die? Now, Zhao Liang was in despair. He felt that there was no way he could succeed. He had returned to his previous situation. No, it was worse than before. There was nothing in the past. There was no prosperity, no happiness. But to return to an ordinary life, a life that was completely different. How could anyone stand it? The hardest thing to pass was to have once. At this moment, Zhao Liang thought of Yu Ling, who was pregnant with his child. Since they had a child, Yu Ling would not want the child to be fatherless. Zhao Liang went back and said that he wanted to acknowledge his child. The Yu family, It was easy to tell what this person was thinking with a single glance. How shameless. Wasn't he so arrogant before? Now, he wanted to take a shortcut from the Yu family. Why didn't he look at himself? He wanted to be a member of the Yu family. Even if he married into the Yu family, there was no way. Yu Ling thought that her best friend, Ro Xueqiao, would be happy. The Mo family was rich and Mo Ming was a good person. Although he was not in good health, it did not look that serious. She did not expect that after being married for less than a year, or more accurately, only 7 or 8 months, Mo Ming would die. She sympathized with him. Previously, Yu Ling was a little jealous of her best friend. Now that Ro Xueqiao's husband was dead, Yu Ling felt pity and gloated. She felt that someone was as unfortunate as her. Ro Xueqiao wiped her tears and said calmly, "You're pregnant. Don't walk around." Ro Xueqiao looked at Yu Ling indifferently. Yu Ling thought that Ro Xueqiao was sad because she lost her husband. She said, "I'll accompany you." Ro Xueqiao said, "No need." Seeing that Ro Xueqiao did not want to talk to her, Yu Ling held her stomach and went for a checkup. After Yu Ling left, Ro Xueqiao's tears fell. She covered her face and cried. After Ning Shu returned to the system space, she let out a long sigh and lay on the sofa to take a nap. This mission was really tiring. After waking up, Ning Shu checked his rewards. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Taker. Accumulative Points Card, 1 Accumulative Point Card at 18. 7 billion. Soul Value, 12 HP, 11 Wisdom, 13 Luck, 134 Charm, 8 Spiritual Power, 11 Combat Strength, 12 Aptitude, 12 Faith, 157880 Merit, 94800 Soul Strength, 65 Authorization Ticket, none Pure Heart, none Comprehended Law, Water Law Incarnation. Construct a world, it might be the world of Samsara. Items, Calm Halo, Tranquilizer, Faith Halo, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Intermediate Fighting Technique, Intermediate Level Poison Technique, Beginner Level Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Level Code Programming, Beginner Level Lawyer Skill, Sage Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Level Cooking Skill, Intermediate Level Embroidery Skill, Trash Hypnosis. Halo, Mother of the World Empress Blessing, Model Worker Sister Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Halo Grass Blessing, Lifelong Friend Miao Miao Miao's Blessing. Savior Zhu Sun Yang's Blessing, Founding Lady Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Beauty of the Law Chen Ning's Blessing, Blood Clan Nemesis Jasmine's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication by San Yang's Blessing, Braveheart Wang Ying's Blessing. Completed Ro Xueqiao's wish to marry Mo Ming. Mission completion rate, 100%. Mission reward, 12 accumulative points, 10 attribute points, 70% soul power, 5,600 faith, 253,2500 faith, 12503,614 merit points. Ning Shu looked at the long list of taxes and suddenly felt that he had become rich. Previously, he had used up all his taxes and now his wallet was full. He could buy whatever he saw. If there was something rare, he could buy it with some merit points. Problems that could be solved with money were not big problems, but the big problem was whether he had the money or not. Ning Shu added the attribute points, and the resume looked a little better. It was pleasing to the eye. The attribute panel was the work experience. If the main system wanted to check on a person, it would be able to get a person's information in just a few minutes. Moreover, Ning Shu discovered that there were some changes in his attribute panel. There was a new column, Construct a World. Could it be the world of reincarnation? Could it be the world of reincarnation? However, this black hole had not completed its evolution. He still did not know what it would be like in the end. Ning Shu added the attribute points. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27. Rank, Super Mission Taker. Accumulative points, 18,712, 1 accumulative point for 10 million soul value, 121 health points, 111 wisdom, 131 luck, 141 charm, 81 mental strength, 111 martial strength, 122 aptitude, 122 faith, 15788056002532500 merit, 9480012503614 soul strength, 656 authorization ticket, none pure heart, none comprehended law, water law incarnation. Construct a world, could be the world of reincarnation items, calm halo, heart calming pill, faith halo, amulet 4. Upgraded amulet 2 honorary titles, war god empress, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring spear technique, intermediate close combat technique, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer, beginner ghost catching, beginner cooking, intermediate embroidery, trash hypnosis, halo, mother of the world empress blessing, model worker sister Chen Shi's blessing, leader halo grass blessing, lifelong friend Miao. Miao Miao's blessing, savior Zhu Sun Yang's blessing, founding female general Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty of the law Chen Ning's blessing, blood tribe nemesis Jasmine's blessing, cross-race communication, blessing, brave heart Wang Ying's blessing. When Ning Shu saw the faith and merit, his heart was about to explode with joy. So much money, he did not have to live a miserable life like before. These were the benefits brought by the world of reincarnation. After becoming stronger, there would be more resources. I smiled proudly and proudly. My only regret was that I did not find the source of the world in this world. I was told that I was looking for the source of the world. It was not easy to even leave the house. I found so many excuses that I wanted to cry. Every time I opened my mouth, it would make me more suspicious. I would look for it again in the next world. Every time I said next time, I just could not find it after searching for so long. Chapter 2058. In the end, Ning Shu was really tired of searching for the water world source. Ning Shu prepared to go to see Tian's auction to see if there was any water world source. He would also go to other cities to take a look. As long as he could find it, spending money was not a problem. This was how rich he was. Ning Shu practiced Mei Ziqing's system as usual. He asked, "How is Xiaohua incubating the world source? Where's Mei Ziqing? Did she do her mission?" Mei Ziqing's system, she went to do her mission and hasn't hatched yet. Please don't be anxious. Don't ask after a period of time. Oh, Ning Shu said in disappointment. If the incubation is successful, you must remember to inform me. I don't think you will miss this historic moment. Mei Ziqing's system said. How could he miss such frequent inquiries? It was like checking in at work. Ning Shu closed the chat system and went to the City of Water. Ning Shu appeared in the City of Water and built a world. Ning Shu was not so afraid of meeting judges now. Even if she met them, she could hide in the black hole. They could not do anything to her. If they had the ability, they could come to her black hole and kill her. Ning Shu went to Shu Bai's restaurant to buy some food. Only good food and strength could not be let down. Ning Shu held the milk tea in his left hand and the spicy strips in his right hand as he headed to see Tian's auction. The auction hall sold all kinds of things and props. Ning Shu looked at them and did not take a fancy to any of them. The only thing she was interested in now was the water world source. Ning Shu wandered around the auction hall. Si Tian, dressed in a wide-sleeved robe, walked over. Ning Shu cupped his hands and asked, "City Lord, do you have anything you like?" "No." "Do you have the water world source?" Ning Shu asked. Si Tian shook his head. "I don't have any at the moment." "City Lord, do you want to take a look at other things? There are better things than the world source. I have a nothingness law stone here. What the hell was the law of nothingness? Ning Shu felt that there must be 8 words written on his face. One was a fool with a lot of money, and the other was a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. The law of nothingness stone sounded quite high-end, but what Ning Shu needed right now was the world's origin, so he didn't need something like that. Ning Shu shook his head. I'll go to the other cities to take a look at the world's origin. Si Tian said, this void law stone does not have any laws, it can form any laws, but the Sea of Law stone contains all the laws of the Sea of Law. Well, so. Ning Shu actually didn't quite understand. Even if the law stone of nothingness was a blank piece of paper, it could be turned into an elemental law stone. Therefore, Ning Shu didn't care. She only wanted the world's origin. Things like law stones were born from laws, but Ning Shu needed the world's origin. The law stone could help one comprehend the laws. Seeing that Ning Shu didn't think much of it, Si Tian was not in a hurry. He cupped his hands and said, City Lord, actually, the law stone of nothingness has a very big characteristic. Ning Shu looked at Si Tian, who was keeping him in suspense, and waited quietly for Si Tian to speak. Si Tian said, I heard that the law of nothingness stone can form the Sea of Law. Ning Shu, I'll quietly watch you brag. It's a pity that you're not a salesperson. You should know that all planes are born from the Sea of Law, right? They obtain all kinds of laws from the laws, and then grow into different planes. The Sea of Law was the mother, and these planes were born from the Sea of Law. Ning Shu said, Big brother, let's not talk about whether the law stone of nothingness can form the Sea of Law first. Let's talk about this logically. The law stone of nothingness originally didn't have any laws, so please tell me how to form the Sea of Law. Si Tian said, this is a legend. Ning Shu, but there's no wind without a hole, right? Si Tian said. Ning Shu, keep the good stuff for yourself. Who created the Sea of Law? Although there's a chance, it might be true. Si Tian smiled and said. Ning Shu, do you think you're buying lottery tickets? City Lord, do you want it? Si Tian asked, I can give you a cheaper price. Thank you, but I don't want it. I want to see this thing in your inventory. Ning Shu said directly, introducing what kind of things. Good and bad. Si Tian cupped his hands, alright, I'll sell it to you at half price. How much is half price? Ning Shu asked casually, 500,000 merit points. Si Tian said. Ning Shu, fuck, she was definitely being treated as a fat sheep. 500,000 merit points, she only collected a total of 1 million merit points in taxes. Ning Shu smiled and rejected, you keep it, I hope you can create the Sea of Law. City Lord, actually, the Void Law Stone exists in a special form. It's called a stone, but it's actually not a stone. Si Tian said. He was not interested at all, he only wanted the water attribute world origin. Although it's called a stone, it exists in the form of water. Si Tian asked someone to bring over a wash basin-sized fish tank, he tapped the fish tank with his finger, this is the Void Law Stone, that's why it has a chance of forming the Sea of Law. Ning Shu looked at the fish tank silently, then said, why don't you keep the good stuff for yourself? Because no one knows how to make it form the Sea of Law. Si Tian said. Ning Shu, if it's useless, why are you selling it at such a high price? Was he trying to catch her and rip her off? Because this thing is very rare, and it's very difficult to obtain. Don't look at how few Void Law stones there are in this fish tank. Many people have already died inside, there's not even a speck left. Si Tian said, it's also a killing weapon, especially when it devours souls. That sounded really creepy. Ning Shu, since it's so good, keep it for yourself. Ning Shu did not take the bait, even if he had a lot of money, he had to use it where it was needed most. Since he was so eager to sell it to her, there must be nothing good, Si Tian would not keep the good stuff for herself. Well, let me put it this way. This thing is rather thirsty, and anyone who comes into contact with it will die. Moreover, no matter how far away the water is, it will gather back together. Si Tian said, that's why I said it's a killing weapon. Ning Shu, he. If I touch it, I'm done for, Ning Shu said with a smile. Something like that. I won't lie to you, this ball of water has such a characteristic. I think you're the embodiment of the water law, you might be able to control it, I don't recommend anyone else. Si Tian said. Ning Shu, thank you for thinking so highly of me. No matter what you say, I won't buy it. 500,000 merit points is already very cheap, this price is already very fair. Si Tian said, it's a pity not to take it, even if it's useless, it can still be used to keep up appearances. I don't need this kind of thing to show off, scram. Ning Shu shook his head, turned around, and was about to leave, otherwise, Si Tian would pull him to keep promoting. Right, do you have the final say on this price? Ning Shu asked. Chapter 2059. Some unscrupulous merchants would raise the price of the goods so high and then give a discount. Wasn't that cheating? They even said that it was a big discount. Si Tian said, this is the auction house's agent. At first, the customer said it was 1 million, but we kept suppressing it. Now, it has dropped to 500,000. The commission we earn, other than the original auction house's items, the auction house collects commission from other people's items. This price is not set by me. For a little commission, I'm risking my life. Si Tian said. Ning Shu, N. I don't believe you. Do you want it? No. You really don't want it? I really don't want it. Take it. No. I know you want it. You're not me. How do you know I want it? I don't want it. Then Si Tian will send City Lord off. Then leave. And, I'm leaving. Ning Shu turned and was about to leave. After taking 2 steps, he turned back and asked, can it swallow anything? Yes, City Lord. Si Tian curled his lips and cupped his hands. Ning Shu walked back. Is there no discount? 500,000 is too expensive. It's already half the price. Si Tian said. It's so expensive. Doesn't your conscience hurt? Just go and snatch it. Si Tian said, yes, but I prefer excitement. Ning Shu, in order to sell things, you've lost all your integrity. Other than me, you shouldn't be able to find anyone else who would buy this thing that hurts others and oneself. Ning Shu looked at the round fish tank and asked, is the fish tank free? Yes. Cheaper. Ning Shu said. No, it's cheap. Ning Shu, stingy. Okay, I'll take it. Ning Shu said and gave 500,000 to Si Tian. Damn, I just got a little tax not long ago, and now I'm returning it. Ning Shu looked at Si Tian and felt that Si Tian was very proud. Previously, Ning Shu didn't want it, but when he thought about how this thing could absorb a lot of things, he felt that it was useful. What forming a sea of law? Who would believe that? Ning Shu carried the fish tank out of the auction house and returned to his system space. Ning Shu threw a piece of sea law stone into the fish tank. Then, there was a sizzling sound. In the end, even the hard sea law stone disappeared without a trace. The water in the fish tank was as clean as before. There was not even a speck of water left. What the fuck, wasn't this the enhanced version of sulfuric acid? It was indeed a thirsty thing. The problem was that this thing might kill without distinguishing between friend and foe. Ning Shu was so desperate that he wanted to put his hand inside to take a look. In the end, he drew a fingernail-sized soul power and put it into the fish tank. In the end, it didn't even make a splash. AI. Ning Shu sent his consciousness into the fish tank, and in the end, even his consciousness was devoured. I'm so thirsty. Can you just tell me what you're not eating? Ning Shu tapped the fish tank with his finger, and some water flowed into the fish tank, but it was useless. It seemed that no one could control this thing. It was called water, but it wasn't water at all. It was different from the essence of water. Si Tian said that she was the embodiment of the law of water, so she might be able to use it. It was pure nonsense. He also didn't know what the fish tank was made of. Ning Shu scooped a lot of spirit liquid from the pool and poured it into the fish tank. However, the water in the fish tank didn't decrease. It was always the same amount. Where did this thing go? Ning Shu really didn't know what to do with this thing. Originally, he wanted to use this void law stone to deal with the spirit replenishing fruit tree in Nine Palace Mountain. There were many tentacles on the fruit tree, and it would be over if it was entangled. He wanted to use this thing, but he couldn't control it at all. It would be a scam if he hurt himself. How could he control this tank of water? What kind of power could turn everything it came into contact with into dregs? No, not even dregs were left. Ning Shu was determined to find a way to control this thing. Just as Si Tian said, this thing was very lethal. Ning Shu temporarily couldn't find a way to deal with the spirit-replenishing fruit tree's endless soul tentacles. If he could really master this thing, it would be much easier for him to deal with the spirit-replenishing fruit. The spirit-replenishing fruit was a good thing, but the soul tentacles were very troublesome. However, there was no way to control the void law stone. Even if Ning Shu extracted his soul origin and fused it with the void law stone, his own soul origin would be swallowed. He lost a trace of his soul origin. There was no way to replenish the soul origin if it was just a little bit. He didn't want to think that he could regain the power of the soul. Back then, for the world of reincarnation, he extracted a part of it. This time, he extracted another trace, but it was swallowed. It looked like ordinary water, but anything thrown in would disappear without a trace. The water was still clear. Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at the fish tank. His finger touched the surface of the fish tank, and circles of ripples formed on the water surface. His heart was stifled. 500,000 merit points. Every time he got the money, he would have something to buy. Ning Shu took a vase and threw it into the fish tank. The vase disappeared. The water was still incomparably clear. Ning Shu had the urge to take a sip. He wanted to see what would happen if he drank this thing into his stomach. Maybe she would disappear. He didn't dare to court death. Ning Shu clicked on the system exchange store to see if there were any items that could deal with this thing. Ning Shu didn't want to use the tank of water that he bought to decorate the system space. He couldn't even raise a fucking fish. Ning Shu's finger flipped through the system exchange store. In fact, he didn't have much hope. The system store probably didn't have such tools. As expected, Ning Shu couldn't find anything. After all, it was too niche. Even if there were any tools, the cost would be very high. Moreover, no one would buy them. Therefore, it was normal that there weren't any tools. Ning Shu looked at the fish tank and fretted. 500,000 merit points. Oh my god, 500,000 merit points. Ning Shu's heart bled when he thought about it, but he couldn't do anything about it. This kind of useless thing was sold at a cheap price. What a black-hearted person. Businessmen were all so treacherous. A silver-haired man was so stingy that it made one's hair stand on end. A black-haired man caught her and cheated her. It seemed like she was the only one who had the taxes to buy these strange things. Ning Shu felt that he should chop off his hands. If he bought these useless things, he would use up all his merit points and power of faith. What if he encountered something worth buying but didn't have enough money? What if he could only watch helplessly as he missed it? Ning Shu felt very stifled. Should he bring this thing to the silver-haired man? The feeling of running to his door and being cheated was, a little complicated. Moreover, Ning Shu didn't know if the silver-haired man would tell him the truth. Would he hide something? Ning Shu felt so pitiful. What a sin. Ning Shu decided to check it himself. He opened the system and searched. If he wanted to know, he could just do it. Ning Shu entered the keywords, Law of Nothingness Stone, and started searching. Chapter 2060. The results of Ning Shu's search were that there was no way to control this kind of thing. Anything that entered it would be assimilated and disappear. Rather than calling it devouring, it was more accurate to call it assimilation. Anything that entered would be assimilated. Ning Shu was speechless. What a scam. What was the point of not being able to control it? It sounded like it had good lethality. It could annihilate and assimilate things. But it was something that could not differentiate between friend and foe. It sounded awesome, but it was a little useless. He bought such an expensive thing on impulse without thinking clearly. He should not spend on impulse. Could he return it? Ning Shu opened the chat and asked Si Tian, I want to return it. Si Tian, who are you? What item did you buy? Once it's sold, it cannot be returned. Fuck, he was playing dumb. Ning Shu replied expressionlessly, I am Ning Shu. City Lord, what's the matter? Do you need any items? Si Tian asked. I want to return it, Ning Shu said. Si Tian, City Lord, I'm afraid this is a little difficult. If it's an item from an auction, you can definitely return it. But this is a consignment item. The person who consigned it took the money and left. Ning Shu was speechless. So the person who consigned it could not be found. Ning Shu pulled his hair. Si Tian, this bastard. Ning Shu asked, I'll sell it to you. Do you want it? If the city lord wants to buy it, I can buy it. How much is the city lord selling it for? The return price is a little cheap. Si Tian said directly, 250,000 merit points. Ning Shu, get lost, get lost, get lost. Once it returned to him, he would lose 250,000 merit points. Ning Shu would rather put the fish tank in the system space. He was happy to see it. He did not want to return it, so he kept the price low. Ning Shu, doesn't your conscience hurt? A little. Ning Shu could not find a way to deal with the Law of Nothingness Stone for the time being. Since he could not return it, then so be it. Ning Shu set up a water barrier at the mouth of the water tank. He was afraid that this thing would overflow, and then his system space would be gone. Fortunately, there was a fish tank to block it. Ning Shu tapped the fish tank with his finger. What material was it made of? Ning Shu felt that there were many materials that she did not recognize. Since he couldn't figure it out, Ning Shu gave up and prepared to do the quest. Perhaps he would encounter the world's origin in the mission world. Ning Shu lay down on the sofa and heard the notification from the chat system. Out of boredom, Ning Shu opened it and saw that it was the cute little lowly system that he had not contacted for a long time. Is Kiss there? Ning Shu was speechless. She really couldn't bear to say that she wasn't around. Yes. Is your master still busy with the matters of the plane? Ning Shu asked. Yes, but the abnormalities in the plane have been dealt with. Now they are slowly merging with the plane's heavenly axiom. This time I am here to return the brain, the little lowly said. Ning Shu, congratulations. She probably suffered a lot to have such a plane. Ning Shu did not regret giving up that plane at all. He did not want to spend a lot of time there. Also, that plane was a little disgusting. The giant sperms multiplied unscrupulously. Even if he had that plane, Ning Shu felt that it had been washed by a lot of sperm. Moreover, he did not know how long that plane would last. After thinking about it, the world that he built was still better. However, with her own world, the little Loli's mission became different. Her level became higher. Thank you for this time. My master said that he wanted to treat you to a meal. Thank you for lending him the brain. Are you selling it? The little Loli asked crisply. Ning Shu, I'm not selling it. He really could not bear to reject a cute little Loli. Is that so? What a pity. What do you want in exchange? What do you need? I will try my best to find it for you, the little Loli said. Ning Shu wanted to say the water element world origin, but he stopped. A world origin for a super civilization's brain was not a good deal. Ning Shu said directly, I'm not selling this thing. The water element world origin would appear eventually. If he could not wait 1 day, he would wait 2 days. If 2 days were not enough, he would wait 3 days. However, a super civilization spent a lot of wisdom to create a brain. This kind of thing was not something that could be found easily. Oh. The little Loli was a little disappointed. She returned the brain to Ning Shu. The brain appeared in Ning Shu's storage box. Ning Shu took out the brain. It was still black. Perhaps it was because he had not seen this thing for a long time. Ning Shu felt that this thing in his hand was a little important. It probably absorbed a lot of mental power. Ning Shu put the brain on the bookshelf. When he put it on, the bookshelf creaked and almost fell. Well, it was not heavier. It was much heavier. It was a win-win situation. Fortunately, the little Loli's mission enforcer was a man of his word. He returned it to her. However, even if he did not return it, she had a way to get it back. To be honest, Ning Shu had piled up a lot of things in the system space. Initially, she had nothing. Back then, when she had nothing, Ning Shu was like an ant moving things into the system space bit by bit. Now, she had some good things. Of course, there were also some useless things, such as a tank of water. Ning Shu lay on the sofa and said to 2333, who had been silent the whole time, I was impulsive. Why didn't you stop me? Oh, what did you buy? 2333 said. Ning Shu asked in surprise, don't you know that I bought a fish tank? I was absorbing energy. I don't know what's going on outside. Don't you have money? You bought a fish tank. 2333 looked at the fish tank. How much did it cost? 500,000. Ning Shu said. It was indeed an impulsive purchase. 2333 said, this thing is not easy to control. It will hurt others and hurt yourself. Ning Shu asked, not easy to control. Does that mean it can be controlled? It can be controlled, but it will kill people. I think a lot of people who tried to control it died. 23,333's voice was a little cold. 2333's tone was very serious. It gave Ning Shu goosebumps. Although there were no goosebumps, he felt that 2333 was a little crazy. Ning Shu swallowed and asked, how do I do it? 2333 opened his lips and said, it's simple. Jump in. Ning Shu jumped up in shock and said, are you kidding me? Everything could be assimilated and devoured. If she jumped in, there would be nothing left. She would turn into a puddle of water. I'm not kidding. Just jump in and merge yourself with the law of nothingness stone. You will be able to control it. 2333 said. Ning Shu was speechless. Oh my God. This was no different from suicide. It was too risky. There was almost a 100% chance of death. Chapter 2061. Ning Shu chuckled. 2333 said, this is the only way. The law of nothingness can merge with everything in the world. If you can resist the fusion of the law of nothingness stone, you might succeed. After the fusion, there is a great benefit. 2333 paused. He had to keep Ning Shu in suspense. Ning Shu did not speak. No matter how great the benefit was, Ning Shu did not hesitate to choose his own life. There were definitely benefits to such danger. However, if he could use time to become stronger, Ning Shu would choose to use time. He would not choose to do something so dangerous. Yes, there is another benefit. You cannot be killed. 2333 said, from now on, your body will become the law of nothingness. Any attack will be absorbed by your body. Ning Shu. It was indeed very attractive. As expected, danger was accompanied by great opportunities. However, the problem was that there was a 999,999% chance of survival. The remaining 0.000000001% chance of survival was basically negligible. No matter how tempting it was, Ning Shu didn't dare to take the risk since it meant certain death. It was almost certain death. There was no need to take the risk. Ning Shu took a deep breath. He did not look at the law of nothingness stone. It was too tempting. However, it was also filled with the smell of death. Ning Shu asked 2333, how do you know this? Oh, I know a little about this thing. 2333 said. Ning Shu, where did this knowledge come from? Ning Shu was too lazy to ask. 2333 might not answer even if he asked. As expected, 2333 did not answer. Ning Shu could not help but look at the fish tank. He said, go do the mission. 2333 asked, do the system mission. Ning Shu, did he not just do the system mission? No. Ning Shu said. Okay. 2333 did not mind that Ning Shu did not agree to do the system mission. Ning Shu originally wanted to do a quest, but he felt that his mind wasn't calm. In the face of such a big decision, he needed time to calm down. Although it was a death sentence, birds die for food and men die for wealth. Ning Shu wanted to fight. But at the same time, he was also afraid that he might die. If that happened, everything would turn into a puddle of water and there would be nothing left. However, if he were to fuse with this thing, his power would increase tremendously. He would be able to fuse with everything in the world and all kinds of attacks. The temptation was too great. Ning Shu really wanted to sell this thing. Out of sight, out of mind, and out of mind. His heart was no longer as anxious. Forget it. Let's not do the quest first. I'll think about it. Ning Shu said to 2333. Ning Shu tapped with his finger and a black hole appeared before him. Ning Shu walked into the black hole and disappeared from the system space. Ning Shu stepped on the black sand and looked at the 9-palace mountain in the world of samsara. The evolution of this world wasn't complete yet. If it was really the world of samsara, then there should be a pool of rebirth. Ning Shu looked up the information about the pool of rebirth. The pool of rebirth's function was to remove all memories, language, skills, and knowledge from the soul. It was a blank and pure soul. When the soul was reborn into the world of the living, it had to jump into the pool of rebirth to start a new cycle. The pool of rebirth's function was similar to the legendary Mengpo's soup. After drinking it, one would forget their past and let go of their obsession. Only then could they reincarnate. That was why her status panel said that this was the world of samsara. However, a world of samsara without the pool of rebirth wasn't the world of samsara. But how did this pool of rebirth form? Ning Shu felt like an idiot. She could only watch the world slowly evolve. The formation of a world wasn't something that could be done in a day or two. It was useless for her to be anxious. Ning Shu placed his hand on the 9-palace mountain and felt a strong suction force sucking him in. Ning Shu appeared in the square and looked at the people coming and going. There were some people in the square who were accepting missions or issuing missions. There were all kinds of strange quests. Some lost dogs, some lost cats, some went into the forest to explore, and some went to find treasures. Ning Shu felt like he was playing a game. However, it was much more realistic than a game. In the game, he could return to the city to recover his health. However, if he died here, he would die. The first time he came here, he foolishly teamed up with someone else. When he heard that there were fruits that could strengthen the soul, he followed them. Moreover, he went to a dangerous place like the Valley of Wind. He was almost entangled by the soul of the fruit tree. Therefore, Ning Shu wanted to understand this place. The 9-Palace Mountain had 9 layers of worlds. This was only the first layer. He didn't know what kind of worlds there were above it. Ning Shu walked on the street and looked around. This was an ancient city. As Ning Shu walked, he felt his clothes being tugged. He looked down and saw a child with a ponytail. The child looked to be about 7 or 8 years old. He smiled and asked, "Is this your first time in the God Star Stream? I have a complete map here. It only costs 1 spirit stone." Ning Shu looked at the child. He had a body and wasn't in a soul state. He should be the descendant of the trial disciples. He couldn't leave, and he couldn't run to the top 9 levels. He could only survive and reproduce here. Ning Shu said, "Little friend, I don't have any spirit stones." She really didn't have any spirit stones. The boy was a little conflicted and asked, "If you really don't have any spirit stones, how are you going to cultivate?" "Oh, you are in a soul state. You should use a soul stone to cultivate. How about this, I'll take 2 soul stones from you." The boy said. What was a soul stone? Was it the same thing as a spirit stone? Ning Shu said, "This is my first time here. I don't know what you're talking about." She was Xiao Bai. The boy was speechless. "How about this, I'll give you a small bottle of spirit liquid. You give me the information of the entire world." Ning Shu said. Ning Shu reached behind him and out of the black hole. A hand suddenly appeared in the system space and took the porcelain bottle on the table. There was a pool of spirit water in her system space. There were swaying lotus flowers. 2333 had already put the spirit water in a porcelain bottle for her. Ning Shu's hand came out of the black hole and took out a small porcelain bottle. The porcelain bottle was not big. "This is spirit liquid. It's much purer than spirit stones," Ning Shu said as he shook the porcelain bottle. The boy couldn't take his eyes off the bottle in Ning Shu's hand. He raised his chin and said, "Humph, I don't believe that this is spirit liquid." Ning Shu opened the bottle cork and said, "Feel it." The boy leaned close to the mouth of the bottle and almost jumped up. Then he said, "Wait for me here. I'll be back soon." The boy ran away as if his butt was on fire. Ning Shu stood there and waited for him. To be honest, Ning Shu wasn't afraid of encountering danger here. If there was really danger, she could leave immediately. Chapter 2062. As long as she entered the black hole, she would be able to leave this place and come and go as she pleased. Could the water laws of this world be used? Ning Shu condensed a fist-sized water ball and played with it in his hand. Very good, he could use the power of law. Soon, the little boy came over with a lot of things, including a few jade slips. He said, "I've taken out all my treasures, can you give me the spirit liquid?" Ning Shu gave the spirit liquid to the little boy, took the things in his hand and said, "Keep the good things for yourself, and don't tell anyone that I have these things. Since I dared to take them out, I'm not afraid of being provoked." The little boy quickly shook his head, "I won't, we're done here." He didn't dare to tell anyone, otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to protect this small bottle of things, and it would definitely be snatched away. Ning Shu sent his consciousness into the jade slip. The contents of the jade slip were exploding. There were maps and detailed introductions. This level of the world didn't only have this city, there were other cities as well. Where there were people, there would be Jianhu, and there would be conflicts. Every city had its own sect, and of course, only the strong had the right to speak. Many experts would rather enjoy the resources and respect on the first level than go to the second level. Furthermore, going to the second level would cause them to be tortured by the space blades and wind blades. Those who didn't have absolute strength, or those who didn't have great ambitions, all chose to stay and develop their strength on the first level, forming large clans. Furthermore, the world here was so big, it was about the same size as the outside of the Nine-Palace Mountain. There were many demonic beasts here, and some of them were ancient demonic beasts that were extinct outside. Each of them was incomparably powerful, and lived in the mountains where humans rarely went. Sometimes, they would come out to show their presence. There were many cities, and after continuous reproduction, there were also many people. This was a complete world. If the world on the first level was like this, then what about the world above? Ning Shu was really envious of the Nine-Palace Mountain. The use of spirit stones was something that cultivators needed, but the use of soul stones was not connected to the world of reincarnation. The soul of a cultivator was strong, and after death, they could continue to cultivate, but if they encountered irreversible damage, their soul would still disappear. But even though the consciousness in the soul had dissipated, the soul power was still there, and the soul essence was still there. Those things were absorbed by the world and became soul stones. The soul stone contained the power of the soul, and the best soul stones even contained the source of the soul. These soul stones became the cultivation method of soul cultivators. They relied on soul stones, just like how cultivators relied on spirit energy in spirit stones, becoming the source of power. A soul stone with soul power and soul origin, this was amazing. This world even knew how to be self-sufficient and recycle. Soul stones and spirit stones were the same as currency here. Ning Shu's eyes lit up. If she obtained this stone, would she be able to extract soul force or soul source from it? He remembered that when he entered the black market in the virtual space, he had to extract a trace of his soul origin. In other words, soul origin and soul energy could both be obtained. But where would he get this soul stone? It seemed that there were soul stone mines, but they were all occupied by the big families. He just didn't know if the soul power and soul origin in the soul stone were pure or not, or if there were any negative things. The world wasn't so kind as to remove the impurities in your soul. It simply absorbed the soul and formed a soul stone. It shouldn't be too pure. Ning Shu didn't dare to touch things that weren't too pure. After experiencing all kinds of worlds and meeting all kinds of people, the people around her had a lot of negative emotions. If she absorbed impure soul power, the negative emotions in the soul power would affect her and even cause her to go berserk. Negative energy could be contagious, not to mention directly absorbing it into her body and exploding on the spot. But if she could find a way to purify the soul stone, wouldn't she have profited? Soul stones should be unique to the Nine-Palace Mountain because the other planes were connected to the world of reincarnation. After a person died, their soul would enter the world of reincarnation. The situation in the Nine-Palace Mountain wouldn't happen, where people and souls lived together. It seemed that this world could give her surprises. When she first came, she found the spirit replenishing fruit. This time, she found a soul stone. She really wanted to see what a soul stone looked like. Ning Shu asked the little boy squatting beside her, "Do you have a soul stone?" "Let me see the soul stone." The little boy shook his head, "I don't have a soul stone, and soul stones make me feel uncomfortable. Living people rarely use soul stones." "Why?" Ning Shu asked. "Soul stones are very cold. Some soul stones even have people's faces inside." It was a little disgusting. When Ning Shu heard the little boy's description of the soul stone, she was a little disappointed. As expected, it was impure soul power and soul origin. So every time after completing a mission, the pure soul power of the person who entrusted the mission would be very precious. What should she do if she couldn't purify it? She chose to use the soul stone to strengthen her soul in a short period of time, filling her body with impurities and negative things. Ning Shu was willing to choose a world to complete missions and earn pure soul power. But Ning Shu still didn't give up on the soul stone. She wanted to get some back and think of a way to purify it. The power of the masses couldn't be underestimated. If she took this thing out, there would definitely be people who could think of a way to purify the soul stone. If she could purify the soul stone and turn it into pure soul power and soul origin, it would be a big deal. All the mission takers worked hard to complete missions in order to obtain soul power and become stronger. But if the soul stone could be purified, then there would be other ways to become stronger. After reading the contents of the jade slip, Ning Shu returned the jade slip to the little boy and said, "I'll return the jade slip to you." The little boy immediately clutched the jade bottle that was stuffed in his chest. "Do you want to take the spirit liquid back?" Ning Shu said, "I don't want to take it back. Take me to the trading area here to take a look." "Okay." The little boy immediately smiled and led the way for Ning Shu. He also introduced Ning Shu to some of the city's situation, such as where there were many thieves and which restaurants had good food. The jade slip introduced the city's clans and some powers, but it didn't introduce the details of petty theft. Not everyone here was strong. Not all the children of cultivators had spirit roots and had the opportunity to cultivate. Chapter 2063. Ning Shu bought a bottle of spirit liquid at the trading center and obtained 5 soul stones. The soul stones were a bit like jade, but there were some spots inside, so they were probably not pure soul stones. Ning Shu sensed it slightly and felt that there was soul power surging inside, and his heart was filled with desire for the soul stones. However, Ning Shu still resisted the urge to absorb the soul power inside. Such impurities could not be absorbed. It was easy to absorb, but difficult to remove. Ning Shu could still resist this temptation. After getting the soul stone she wanted, Ning Shu planned to leave. She didn't know if she would be able to make a fortune if she sold the soul stone, a local specialty. Ning Shu put away the soul stones. The little boy Ning Shu said, "Is there anything else you want to know?" "I can tell you." When the little boy saw Ning Shu take out another bottle of spirit liquid to sell, he guessed that she must have more spirit liquid. Ning Shu had more important things to do now, so he shook his head and left. When he reached a hidden place, he opened a black hole and walked into it, disappearing. Ning Shu returned to the system space and prepared to go to Water City to find Si Tian. He wanted to see if Si Tian could think of a way to purify the soul power in the soul stones. When he arrived at the auction house, Ning Shu said directly, "I'm looking for your boss." When Si Tian heard that Ning Shu had returned, his eyelids twitched. Thinking of how the city lord insisted on returning the goods, Si Tian felt a little helpless and went to the private room to see Ning Shu. When Ning Shu saw Si Tian, he put down his teacup and said, "I have something to talk to you about." Si Tian cupped his hands. "City Lord, Si Tian is willing to take back the law of nothingness stones. But only half price." Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, "I have other things to talk to you about this time." As he said that, he placed a few soul stones on the table. "Take a look." Si Tian picked up the jade-like soul stones on the table and looked at them carefully. "There's soul power inside, and even soul origin." Ning Shu nodded. Si Tian was a little surprised at first, but then he was a little disappointed. "There seems to be some impurities in it. It's not pure. If it was pure, it wouldn't have come looking for you." Ning Shu said, "Is there any way to get rid of the impurities? This is a little difficult. I don't think there's anything I can do." Si Tian placed the soul stone on the table and shook his head. "Let's just leave this thing here. Let's brainstorm together. We'll definitely come up with something. If this thing contains pure soul power, you'll be rolling in money, Ning Shu said. Si Tian cupped his hands and said, City Lord must be joking. How can Si Tian be so lucky? Even if I came up with a solution, I wouldn't have a source of goods. How can I be so lucky? Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and sipped his tea without saying a word. Si Tian continued, I don't know if there's a sufficient supply of this thing. It took a lot of effort to obtain it. Pure soul energy isn't a lot. The cost and the reward are not equal. The only thing that's worth a little is the soul origin. It seems that the soul stone mines in the 9 Palace Mountain are all occupied by the big families. If she could find an unowned mine, she would have a sufficient supply. Ning Shu shook his head. Si Tian said, although I don't know where the city lord found this thing, it's best not to absorb it directly. Ning Shu nodded and left a piece for Si Tian. He took the rest. Si Tian didn't seem to want to take this business. He was even trying to find out where this thing came from. Ning Shu had a strong sense of territory. He didn't want anyone to enter his world of reincarnation. Even if he found a soul stone mine, he would use the people in the 9 Palace Mountain to mine it. Ning Shu kept the other stones and was about to leave. Si Tian cupped his hands, farewell, City Lord. Every time Ning Shu saw Si Tian acting like an ancient person, he was not used to it. However, everyone had their own habits. Ning Shu didn't say anything. After leaving the auction house, Ning Shu carried the stone to the silver-haired man's consultation room. After walking for a while, he still ended up here. It could only be said that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Ning Shu walked into the consultation room. After all, he had plenty of money now. Ning Shu sat on a chair. The silver-haired man came out with a book in his hand. He sat down and asked, what do you want to ask? Ning Shu placed the soul stone on the table and pushed it in front of the silver-haired man. Is there any way to purify this thing? The silver-haired man picked it up and looked at it. How do you purify it? There must be a way to purify it. The soul power that the mission takers absorb is purified. Ning Shu asked, how do you purify it? The main system has special equipment to purify souls, the silver-haired man said, but you can't deal with this kind of thing. Where did you get this from? You can sell it to the main system. The system store can buy it, the silver-haired man said. Ning Shu, damn, does that mean I can't touch this kind of thing at all? At most, I'll get some merit or faith power from selling it. She had these things. What she lacked was soul power. She felt that there wasn't much soul power after every mission. Would it be better if there was an additional source of soul power? Ning Shu asked, other than selling it to the main system, is there any other way? Yes, if you have the ability to remove the impurities. It was like using water. Could you turn sewage into tap water by yourself? It couldn't be. Ning Shu, she wasn't strong enough to remove the impurities yet. It was already good enough that she could prevent herself from going crazy. If she could remove the impurities by herself, she wouldn't have come here. If you have a lot of this thing, you can sell it to the main system. Or if you don't want to sell it, I'll give you a proportion of the pure soul power, the silver-haired man said. Sigh. Ning Shu was a little tempted by this plan. She would provide the raw materials, the main system would be responsible for the purification, and then everyone would be divided according to a certain proportion. Everything she did was for the sake of obtaining additional soul power. But she hadn't dealt with the main system yet. Just by looking at the system store, Ning Shu felt that she might be cheated. There were sinkholes everywhere. But she didn't dare to absorb soul power that hadn't been purified. More or less, Ning Shu planned to take back the soul stone and leave. The time in the consultation room was calculated according to the time. The silver-haired man said, 1 soul stone as the consultation fee, and an additional 100 merit points. Hee, 100 merit points. Was that the tax she collected from the silver-haired man? Now she wanted to take it back. Not only did she want to take it back, but she also wanted a soul stone. Dream on. She had taken something from him before, and now she wanted to take it back. But the problem was that she walked here on her own. This was truly a rather sorrowful matter. Chapter 2064. The soul stone won't be used as a consultation fee. Ning Shu took back the soul stone. The silver-haired man said, "I'm taking your soul stones to the main system to test if it can be purified. If I really want something from you, I want all your soul stones as a consultation fee." When the silver-haired man said this, there was a strong sense of arrogance in his tone. "Even if I do this, what can you do to me?" Ning Shu placed a soul stone on the table and said, "I seriously doubt that my question is worth 100 merit points." Did he really not want to take back the taxes from before? Furthermore, it was exactly 100 merit points more or less. He seriously suspected that it was done on purpose. "If you waste any more time, it won't be just 100 merit points," the silver-haired man said. Ning Shu took out 100 merit points and left. While she was at it, she also strengthened the barrier around Water City to prevent any problems from occurring. After that, she returned to the system space and asked 2333, "How do I contact the main system? If it really can be purified, the main system will contact you. What you need to think about now is how to get a lot of soul stones." 2333 said. Did that mean he still had to enter the Nine Palace Mountain? The matter of the soul stones could not be rushed. Right now, the most important thing was to construct his own world. It would be better for him to do quests. He did not know if he could find any or veins. He was really making a ruckus here and there. He still had to go and complete the mission. Who knew, he might even be able to find the source of the world. Ning Shu said to 2333, "Let's go do the quest first. They could look for the ore veins later." She had plenty of time anyway. All right. Ning Shu felt dizzy for a moment as he fused with a body. However, Ning Shu immediately felt that something was amiss. He could not open his eyes. Additionally, he could not move his body. He could only hear some people chanting in his ears. "The 1,000-faced peach blossoms are better than 100 flowers. The Lonely Glory Spring Festival Gala stays in the prime of time. If the Qin people see it, they will praise it to their old lovers in Huyuan." There were even sounds of praise around him. Brother Li's poem is not bad. Brother Li is a genius. Ning Shu was completely integrated into a body. He couldn't open his eyes. He could only use his spiritual power to check himself. He seemed to have turned into a peach tree. The branches were decorated with buds and delicate flowers. Ning Shu, that was why she had turned into a peach tree. She wondered if it would bear peaches. In a pavilion not far away, a group of scholars dressed in formal attire were pointing at a peach blossom forest, each of them unruly. Ning Shu didn't care about these people. Instead, he looked at the place where she was. It seemed to be a temple, and there were some monks. Ning Shu felt that this place was a little familiar. He felt that he had been to this place before. Moreover, this peach blossom forest was also very familiar. She must have been to a place like this before, surely. Generally speaking, if it wasn't something important, Ning Shu would throw it to the back of his mind and compress the information so that it wouldn't occupy his brain. However, Ning Shu had some impression of this temple. A group of scholars were still reciting poems. They were reciting poems about peach blossoms. Seeing that these scholars were wearing thick clothes, it should be late spring. The peach blossoms in the temple had actually bloomed. That meant that this temple was relatively high above sea level and was the first to bloom. That was why it attracted scholars and poets. These scholars were talking to their heart's content. They actually started to pick the peach blossoms and broke the branches. Some scholars even said that they would take the branches back and put them in vases. Some scholars came in front of Ning Shu and stretched out their hands to pick the flowers. A voice sounded, "Brother Su, this tree is the biggest in the peach blossom forest. Perhaps it already has spirituality. Brother Su, don't hurt it. It's better to find another tree. Brotherly, I really like it. It's the biggest in this peach blossom forest. I heard that it has spirituality, so I picked a bouquet and put it in the study. Perhaps with this peach blossom, my thoughts will be like a fountain." Brother Su chuckled and said, "Brotherly, let's each pick a bouquet." Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Inspiration was related to flower arrangement. Ning Shu very quickly accepted that he had become a peach tree. "I think I'll pass." Brotherly shook his head and turned to leave. After Brotherly left, this Brother Su spat, "Poor as can be, yet you're so particular. You're just fishing for fame. If you have the ability, why don't you pick the flowers in the garden?" Spirituality. All the peach blossoms in this garden are bathed in Buddhist light. They all have spirituality. This scholar muttered. Obviously, he was very disdainful of this Brotherly. His disdain was obvious in his words. These words were all heard by Ning Shu. A feeling of annoyance appeared in his heart. He had a good impression of this Brotherly. Ning Shu suppressed the emotions in his heart. Facing the fate of having his branches broken, Ning Shu wanted to directly use his mental power to throw this guy out. Amitabha. Benefactor, please be merciful. All things have spirituality. This peach tree has always been growing in the Wuxia temple. It was originally a peaceful place for Buddhists. Benefactor, please be merciful to these peach blossoms. A monk with a white beard walked over and said. There was a scar on his head. His expression was calm and compassionate. Just by standing there, it felt like Buddha had come into being. Everyone didn't dare to be slow. They quickly put their palms together and bowed back. Master Huiji. Huiji. Ning Shu looked at Master Huiji in surprise. This guy couldn't be the little monk Huiji, right? The little kid back then had actually become an old man now. No wonder he felt familiar. Wasn't this the world where she was the witch of the demonic sect? She had some interactions with this little monk. Back then, she was even joking. That scene surged into Ning Shu's mind. At that time, Ning Shu, Huiji, said, these peach blossoms listen to Sanskrit every day. Maybe they will develop Buddhist spirituality. Maybe a peach blossom demon will appear in your temple. That is good. Everything has a spirit. If a peach blossom really has intelligence because of Sanskrit, then it is fated with Buddha. Huiji replied. Ning Shu held his chin and looked at the little monk. He then looked at the peach blossoms outside. He had already imagined the tragic love story between the beautiful monk and the peach blossom demon. But whether or not a peach blossom demon would appear was not certain. Now, she had become a peach blossom demon, but Huiji had become the old monk Huiji. There was even a tragic love story between the beautiful monk and the peach blossom demon. Ning Shu wanted to wipe his face. So, there really was a peach blossom demon. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to counterattack. When he saw an old friend, Ning Shu was a little emotional. Each time he met a stranger, he had to start from the beginning. It was a familiar background and character, so he was able to enter the zone quickly. Old man, I haven't seen what Huiji looked like when he was young, but Huiji still looks dignified even when he's old. I reckon that when he was young, he was also a handsome bald man. It seemed like it wasn't a tragic love story between the beautiful monk and the peach blossom demon. This monk's Buddhist heart was firm and tragic love had nothing to do with him. Chapter 2065. Now, the peach blossom demon hadn't even transformed yet and Huiji was already so old. The age difference was too big. Since the abbot of the temple spoke, these scholars couldn't be thick-skinned and pick peach blossoms. Moreover, Huiji was an enlightened monk and even the royal family respected him. The scholars all expressed that the peach blossoms were too beautiful. If they could get an enlightened monk to read their fortune, if it was a life of great wealth and a pillar of the country, it would be twice the result with half the effort. Learning martial arts and selling to the royal family, wasn't this the ultimate goal? Women cultivated into jade color and sold to the royal family, it was all for the royal family and to work for them. However, Master Huiji didn't read people's fortunes often. There were only a few people who were read by him and all of them were important people. Huiji's style was a high-end and classy style. These scholars left in 2s and 3s. Those who passed by Huiji all bowed with Huiji. The last scholar, Brotherly, bowed towards Huiji. Huiji looked at Brotherly and said, "Young master will be rich in the future. You just have to do more good deeds and don't do anything that goes against human relations." Brotherly didn't expect that a master of virtue and prestige would actually read his fortune. Moreover, it was a fortune of great wealth. His family was poor and his parents had passed away early. He relied on his elder brother, but his elder sister-in-law was a sharp and unkind woman. Whenever she had nothing to do, she would viciously scold him by his ear, saying that he was a useless person who couldn't pass the exam and couldn't carry anything. Great wealth meant that he would definitely be able to pass the high school. Young master has a benefactor helping you but you have a tribulation in your life. Whether it is good or bad depends on how you face it. Master Huiji added. Brotherly quickly bowed and suppressed his excitement, "Thank you for your guidance." When the scholars who didn't go far heard the master's words, they were so jealous that their eyes almost turned red. Great wealth, such a poor guy actually had a life of great wealth. What a joke, the only thing a poor scholar could do was pass the high school. Could it be that this person would pass the high school? Many scholars scoffed at Brotherly. After these scholars left, the old monk Huiji asked the little monk to clean up the pavilion. He then took a praying mat and a wooden fish and sat cross-legged on the praying mat. He slowly knocked on the wooden fish in front of him and chanted scriptures. When Ning Shu heard the scripture, he felt as comfortable as if he was soaking in warm water. The tree branch actually began to sway. Not only Ning Shu's tree, but all the peach trees in the peach forest were swaying in the wind. The old monk Huiji looked solemn. His snow-white eyebrows and beard drooped down. Ning Shu tried to accept the plot. "Oh, this world seems to be the tragic love story of the peach blossom demon, but it's not with the beautiful monk, but with that Brotherly from before." That poor scholar Brotherly's surname was Li, and his given name was Hui. His family was destitute with nothing but books on the walls. His parents were dead, and he was living under someone else's roof. Luckily, he had some talent, but he didn't have any room to display it. His family didn't even have the money to send him to the capital for the imperial exam. Li Hui was just a capable person. He couldn't do the heavy work at home and had to live with his brother and sister-in-law. He was like a freeloader. He couldn't even help out when the farm was busy. When Li Hui's parents were still alive, they doted on this son. They did everything they could to provide for this son. They would give Li Hui all the good food at home. Even if they boiled an egg, they would give it to their son without a doubt. As a daughter-in-law, she was always hurt. The old couple passed away, and now she was targeting them. They hated Li Hui all the time. The key was that Li Hui always said that he was a human and didn't lower himself to her level. Luckily, his brother was an honest person and didn't chase his brother out of the house. If there was something to eat, he would give it to him. However, it was impossible for him to go to the capital for the imperial exam. Even if they bought the land, they wouldn't be able to afford it. Moreover, the prices in the capital were so high that if he didn't pass, his family wouldn't be able to survive. Now, he was just living like this. There was no one to support him. It wasn't that no one supported him. It was the landlord's family. They wanted to marry their daughter to him, but Li Hui refused. The landlord's daughter was fat and only knew how to eat every day. Her face was round like a plate and her waist was like a water tank. She didn't have the slightest attitude of a woman. In people's eyes, a woman should have half-curved phoenix eyes with amber hidden. Her red lips were like cherries, her smile was like a blooming flower, and her voice was like jade. Bright and clear like the moon covered by light clouds, drifting like snow in the wind. This was a woman. The landlord's daughter was a pig. Li Hui refused. If he married this kind of woman, wouldn't he be laughed at by the other disciples? Li Hui's refusal made his sister-in-law even more sarcastic. He didn't even look at himself. Could it be that he wanted to marry a fairy beauty? His family was so poor that he couldn't even afford to eat. He only knew how to be poor. However, Li Hui really met a fairy beauty. This beauty's face was like a peach blossom. Her figure was slim and graceful. She was refined like a flower shining on water. Her actions were like the wind and willows. She was like the difference between heaven and earth with the landlord's daughter. Li Hui followed this woman to the mountains and found that this woman lived alone in a straw hut in the mountains. He found an opportunity to strike up a conversation with the woman and asked her name. The woman bowed and said, "Tao Yao." Li Hui murmured, "Tao Yao Yao, dazzling. The son of Yu Gui, suitable for his wife's family. The Tao Yao Yao, suitable for his wife's family. The Tao Yao Yao, suitable for Yi Zhenzhen. The son of Yu Gui, suitable for his family. You really deserve the name Tao Yao. Thank you, young master, for your praise." Tao Yao said calmly. After a while, Li Hui and Tao Yao gradually became familiar with each other. They had a good impression of each other and lived together. Li Hui's life was taken care of by someone. There was also a beauty by his side. His days were very comfortable. However, Li Hui gradually became worried. Tao Yao asked him why. Li Hui said that he had talent but was not used. Because of money, he was burdened by money and had no way to show his talent. Tao Yao had no choice. After thinking about it, he could only use weaving to earn money for Li Hui. However, weaving was a very slow job. Li Hui was about to participate in the autumn examination. If he missed it, he would have to wait for the next time. Tao Yao had no choice. He ran back to Wuyu Temple and found Huiji. He said, "Master, please lend me money so that Li can participate in the imperial examination." Tao Yao promised to slowly weave to repay the money in the future. Huiji said, "Do you know what will happen to you if he falls in love with you? You are a mountain spirit and he is a person who covets the riches of the world. The two of you will not have a good ending together. Master, please lend me money." Tao Yao knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Huiji. "You are half a Buddhist disciple, but now you are deeply in love. This is the root of disaster." Huiji shook his head and gave Tao Yao a bag of money. Chapter 2066. Ning Shu could figure out the rest of the story even if he used his hair. Humans and demons were different. This kind of thing never had a good ending. There were actually a lot of lies. "When I rule the world, I promise you the world as your home. When I rule the world, I'm afraid you're a captive flower. When I have nothing to worry about, I promise you to wander the world. When you have nothing to worry about, I'm afraid you're no longer a beauty. When I'm a soldier for half of my life, I promise you I'll talk with you. When I'm a soldier for half of my life, my childhood sweetheart is already married. When I'm successful and famous, I promise you you'll enjoy the flowers under the moon. When you're successful and famous, the person in your arms will have a rich family. When I'm tall and strong, I promise you a red wedding dress. When you're tall and strong, I'll marry my own husband. When I'm rich and glorious, I promise you 10 miles of peach blossoms. When you're rich and glorious, your beauty will wither and turn into sand. When a man is poor and down, a heavenly beauty who can turn stone into gold appears, allowing him to rise to glory. Actually, the existence of this peach blossom demon was Li Hui's cheat. Although Li Hui was born in a poor family, he had never suffered much since he was young. His parents died and he relied on his brother and sister-in-law. His brother and sister-in-law couldn't give him a future. Now, a peach blossom demon appeared. It was indeed a benefactor who helped Li Hui to rise to the top. Li Hui was in high school and the person in his arms was from a rich family. This kind of result wasn't strange at all. A man had 3 blessings: promotion, wealth, and a dead wife. To gain a foothold in the officialdom, he had to have a father-in-law who supported him. Then, the existence of the peach blossom demon was like a fishbone stuck in one's throat. If Li Hui only killed the person, it would be fine. However, the Taoist priest that Li Hui found to deal with the peach blossom demon killed the peach blossom demon and even took the peach blossom demon's soul. He made it into a magic weapon and trapped it in a jade pendant. From then on, this jade pendant became Li Hui's protective talisman. Every time Li Hui encountered something, it could turn misfortune into a blessing. Of course, these injuries were damaging Tao Yao's soul. Li Hui's career was like being helped by God. He became more and more powerful. From a commoner under the control of the aristocratic families to a level where he was only second to one and above tens of thousands. It was really inspiring. If Tao Yao was reaping what he sowed, he also caused Master Huiji, who gave him life, to pass away. Tao Yao used his last bit of strength to ask for a counterattack, saying that he would offer up all of his soul power. Ning Shu smacked his lips. Back then, the Piqiao had been used as a magic tool, but its soul power had already been nearly depleted. Even if it used all of its soul power to counterattack, it wouldn't be able to do much. Ning Shu rubbed his chin in deep thought. Of course, he had no hands or chin. This was originally a martial arts world. How did it develop in the direction of mountain ghosts and strange stories? He didn't know how much time had passed in this plane. This mission was naturally to save Tao Yao from certain death and save the little monk Huiji. Of course, Li Hui was not to be let off either. Ning Shu thought to himself, and he felt that there was something staring at him from the sky, giving him immense pressure. He immediately suppressed the bad thoughts in his heart. Ning Shu looked at Huiji who was reciting scriptures in the pavilion and sighed. If it was the peerless Baldi, perhaps he would have a relationship with the monk and wouldn't have fallen to this extent. Although Huiji's Buddhist heart was stable and his heart towards Buddhism was firm, he wouldn't treat Tao Yao like this. He might even tell Tao Yao to cut off his ill-fated relationship and convert to Buddhism every day. These kinds of stories about lazy scholars and mountain spirits were all over the streets. Beauties and anything else would be presented to you. Ning Shu looked up at the sky and felt that the heavens might have locked onto her. It was a very heavy feeling. It wasn't easy for mountain spirits to form. Why were they staring at her all the time? Did they think that she was beautiful? Perhaps Ning Shu's thoughts had challenged the heavens' might. The sky exploded with a boom and a huge thunder rumbled. Ning Shu instinctively curled up her branches, afraid of being struck by lightning. Mountain spirits were most afraid of lightning. Lightning was the most yang in the world, and these mountain spirits were very afraid of being struck by lightning. It wasn't easy for them to cultivate and take form, but they were struck to death in the end. In particular, mountain spirits were even more afraid of lightning. In many mountain forests, hundreds of years old trees were suddenly struck by lightning and turned into charred wood. Sigh, the tribulation had failed. Ning Shu could only silently say in her heart, "Master, I was wrong." Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Although she absorbed the power of lightning, it could be used to cultivate peerless martial arts. If she took it head-on, she would definitely become a burning stick. The thunder interrupted Huiji's chanting. Huiji held the wooden fish and looked at the clear sky. The sudden sound of thunder was especially strange. Huiji stopped chanting and let the novice monk put away the praying mat and wooden fish. He then fetched water to water the peach blossoms in the peach garden. Huiji carried the bucket of water in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu felt that Huiji's body was really healthy. His beard and eyebrows were all white, but he could still carry a bucket of water. His body was very strong. Huiji used the gourd ladle to scoop water from the bucket and poured it on the roots of the peach trees. Ning Shu felt that there was a faint spiritual energy in the spring water and hurriedly absorbed it. No wonder the peach trees could become spirits. It was because they were bathed in Buddha's light and the temple's spring water had a bit of spiritual energy. Although it had a bit of Buddha nature, it didn't understand love and hate and fell into the most beautiful love in the world. Ning Shu stretched out a branch and touched Huiji's bald head. Time was like a butcher's knife. The little kid back then had already become so old. What did time do to him? Huiji felt that his head was itchy. He turned his head and saw that Ning Shu had stopped moving. Huiji continued to water the other peach trees. He probably noticed it but didn't care. Maybe Huiji had already noticed that the peach trees had spirituality. With the help of the other novice monks, a patch of peach blossoms was finally watered. Huiji placed down the gourd ladle and clasped his hands together. He chanted Amitabha. Although his voice wasn't loud, the entire peach forest could hear Huiji's voice. Ning Shu felt that something had merged into his body. It was warm, transparent, pure, and comfortable. It was probably the Buddha's body. Huiji had given Tao Yao a new life. Without Huiji, there probably wouldn't be Tao Yao. Tao Yao caused Huiji to pass away. Part of it was because of Li Huiji. It was more or less a revenge for the death of one's father. Moreover, Tao Yao probably worshipped Huiji. Tao Yao respected Huiji a lot. Ning Shu, who had turned into a peach tree, was really bored every day. She couldn't cultivate and could only slowly absorb the essence of the sun and moon. When there was no one around, she would shake her branches and rain petals. The heavens were always locking onto her. If she did anything bad in the future, would a bolt of lightning strike her? Humans were a race of fate, but they were much stricter towards mountain spirits. Maybe it was normal for a person to end up like that. After all, she was a monster. Chapter 2067. Demons and monsters were also proficient in illusory techniques, and their transformations were unpredictable. With a smile, they could become a beauty, and with a turn, they could become an old man. With their left hand, they could create a pavilion and a mansion, and with their right hand, they could create a family fortune in slow motion. However, it was useless. In the end, they would still be hung up and beaten. The demons expressed their sadness. Anything that didn't make sense would be related to demons. The flood was the work of demons, the plague was the work of demons, the earthquake was the work of demons, and when I was caught in bed with someone, it was that vixen who seduced me first. Demons could be said to be the role models of scapegoats, and no one could surpass them. During the period when the peach blossoms were blooming, the Wuxia temple was also quite lively. There was an endless stream of people admiring the flowers. Every day, scholars and poets would recite poems and couplets while facing the peach blossoms. Ning Shu's ears were about to grow calluses from listening to them. Ning Shu saw Li Hui in the group of scholars. Li Hui's clothes were not bad, but Ning Shu saw through his spiritual power that his inner clothes were patched up. She guessed that the outermost clothes he wore were his best clothes. Ning Shu couldn't help but think of a word: failure. Li Hui was quite good-looking. Wearing good clothes, his eyes were clear and bright, and his skin was delicate and white. He was obviously a child from a poor family, but he was raised to be so delicate and tender. Since young, Dada was a person who did not do much. From the looks of it, he was an inconsiderate person. Although he looked wealthy, his cheekbones were a little high and a little mean. Harsh and merciless. Perhaps Li Hui found out that the client was a mountain spirit, but he accepted the client's help with a clear conscience. Perhaps the client was willing to contribute without asking for anything in return. However, Li Hui wanted to make her into a magic tool. Even after she died, he still wanted to exploit her and make her unable to reincarnate. This was a bit disappointing. It was just a wild beast. Ning Shu clicked his tongue in his heart. As for Li Hui's words, it was just like what the other scholars had said. He was just trying to show off his noble character. Logically speaking, if one was literate, they could do many things. They could write letters to people and write couplets during festivals. They could also make a living. However, Li Hui felt that he was very noble and would not do such things. Every time there was such a banquet, Li Hui would be invited. After all, Li Hui had some talent and could come to support the occasion. If he wasn't invited, he would come himself. Li Hui thought that this was an opportunity to expand his network. Tao Yao was mesmerized by Li Hui's appearance. He muttered something about Tao Xiao Yao, and Tao Yao changed his name to Tao Yao. For example, the last time when someone wanted to pluck the flowers, Li Hui spoke up to stop them. This made Tao Yao's impression of this scholar go through the roof. Although it wasn't a big deal to have a bunch of flowers plucked, this scholar was really kind. How could she not know much about the world? After that, whenever Li Hui came to Wuyu Temple, Tao Yao would stare at Li Hui and memorize his poems. She was like a little fangirl. No matter how she looked at her idol, he was handsome. Ning Shu yawned. With so many people, the air became dirty. It was better for her to wait for them to leave before she absorbed the essence of the sun and moon. Who knew when she would be struck by lightning and become a human? When Ning Shu was bored, she would observe Li Hui. Li Hui saw that the scholars of the same sect looked envious and disappointed. There was deep hatred in the depths of his eyes. Every time the client saw Li Hui, Tao Yao's heart ached for him. He was a talented man, but because of his family, he couldn't fulfill his dreams. It really hurt. Ning Shu, actually, it would be better if these people didn't come. However, Wuyu Temple's peach blossom forest was more famous. If they didn't let these scholars come, they would probably write poems and scold people at the entrance of the temple. A scholar's mouth and pen were the most powerful. Huiji probably couldn't do anything about it. After all, Wuyu Temple still relied on pilgrims to provide for it. Luckily, when the flowers withered and bore peaches, these scholars wouldn't come. Otherwise, they would think that they were here to eat peaches. Scholars treated money like dirt. They definitely wouldn't do such a petty thing. However, Li Hui ate a lot of these peaches. They were all given to him by the client. Actually, the client rarely ate and only ate bland things. He basically didn't eat meat. As half a Buddhist disciple, the client didn't kill. Sometimes, he didn't even sleep at night to absorb the essence of the sun and moon. It was inevitable that Li Hui would see it. It was inevitable that people like Li Hui would succeed. He was ruthless and took what needed to be taken away. As long as he could live a better life, even if he knew that the client was different from ordinary people, he didn't say anything. She could only blame the client for thinking too highly of people. Just a few words and he made her have a good impression of him. To judge a person's character, one had to look at their actions. If they said that money was a sin, they would take it. If they said that beauty was a disaster, they would climb to the top. If they said that smoking and drinking were harmful to the body, they wouldn't quit. If they said that heaven was beautiful, they wouldn't go. This world was full of lies. To truly see a person's true colors, one had to look at their actions. Sweet nothings came out effortlessly from his mouth. He didn't lose anything at all. If they really wanted to give something, they would take action. They wouldn't just enjoy what you gave with a clear conscience. After these scholars and pilgrims left, there were novice monks who came to clean the pavilion and the peach blossom forest. Huiji would come to the pavilion every day to chant scriptures. Ning Shu felt that the little monk Huiji could be considered a living Buddha. Every time he chanted, Ning Shu felt that there was energy flowing into her body. In order to speed up her transformation, Ning Shu desperately absorbed the energy, hoping that she could transform faster. Under Ning Shu's efforts, on a dark and windy night, a bolt of lightning struck and Ning Shu appeared. Of course, the feeling of being struck by lightning was heart-wrenching. It was as if her soul was being torn apart. Her entire body was in pain as if she was being electrocuted. Moreover, it came one after another. It felt as if she would only stop after being struck into ashes. Ning Shu was rooted to the ground and had nowhere to hide. She could only endure the lightning strikes on her body. Ning Shu could only grit her teeth and endure, hoping that the lightning would pass quickly. She didn't dare to challenge the heavens. What if she was struck to death? Huiji put on his clothes and came over. Seeing the lightning on the peach blossom tree, he chanted Amitabha. He sat cross-legged on the ground and started chanting. Huiji's chanting gave Ning Shu some strength. The power of the lightning gradually weakened and dissipated. Ning Shu felt that her body was filled with energy again. The peach blossom tree transformed into a body, wearing a set of pink clothes. Ning Shu touched her face. She could finally walk around. She was rooted to the ground and couldn't move. Ning Shu walked in front of Huiji with her hands behind her back and shouted, "Little monk, no, old monk." Huiji opened his eyes and saw Ning Shu's peach blossom face. His expression was normal. Chapter 2068. Upon seeing an old friend, Ning Shu sized up Huiji. Although his eyebrows and beard were white, there were no wrinkles or age spots on his face. His eyes were still clear and transparent. Even when his beard was white, his eyes were still pure, reflecting her peach blossom face. The filth of the world seemed unable to get close to him. To be honest, seeing such a young monk, no, old monk, he really wanted to press him into ink. Being sized up by Ning Shu, Huiji stood up and bowed. "Since you already have a human form, you should convert to Buddhism. You are bathed in the Buddhist light and are a person with wisdom." Ning Shu tapped his chin and looked at Huiji. "Young monk, no, old monk, how long have you lived?" "This penniless monk has lived for more than 150 years, said Huiji. 150. Huiji had lived for so long. He was probably good at maintaining his health. With his age, he could apply for the Guinness Book of Records. It was no wonder that the person who commissioned him could become a spirit. After all, he had bathed in the Buddhist light for more than 100 years. Then, he wouldn't be able to see people from the past. Things remained the same, but people had changed. Ning Shu bowed. "Thank you for saving me, master." Huiji nodded. "You were born with good looks. Don't walk around the mortal world. The world is so big." "I still want to see it," said Ning Shu with his hands behind his back. Huiji frowned. Why was she so disobedient? Were all mountain spirits so playful? It was worrying. The girl who jumped out didn't seem easy to deal with. Huiji frowned and his drooping eyebrows twitched. Ning Shu really wanted to pull Huiji's eyebrows. Huiji had probably been serious since he was young. In the plot, Huiji helped Tao Yao who was being pursued by a Taoist priest. In the end, he passed away with old arms and legs. To Tao Yao, Master Huiji was like a parent. After Master Huiji was killed, Tao Yao almost risked his life to kill the Taoist. The rules of heaven and earth had greater restrictions on the spiritual monsters in the mountains. Once a spiritual monster did something harmful, it would be killed after a period of time. The consequences would be more severe each time. When the Taoist saw how vicious Tao Yao was, he directly captured her soul to make her atone for her sins. She then became the soul of the magic tool. Time and time again, she had no choice but to protect the safety of the person she hated. She was tortured to death. The person she once loved was now in the arms of another person. Watching him walk step by step on the road to success, he asked himself if he was oppressed. He was simply oppressed to the point of bleeding. Sometimes, one really couldn't stand being willful in life. Perhaps the person who had entrusted Li Hui with a pure heart had never thought that she would end up in such a tragic state. Ning Shu analyzed for a moment. As long as a woman of low status followed Li Hui, he would still abandon his wife and children. However, because the person who entrusted him was a demon, he would not be able to rest in peace even in death. Whether it was a human woman or a spiritual monster, they were just stepping stones for Li Hui. If Tao Yao didn't suffer such a fate, other women would suffer such a fate. Unless the woman's status was noble, it would be difficult for her to escape such an ending. Selfish, cold, mean, and ungrateful. Ning Shu said, "Master, I'm a little hungry. Is there anything to eat?" The mission this time was to protect this old man. He was supposed to be a person who could become Buddha, but he died just like that. Huiji saved Tao Yao because he truly bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. He felt that all things had spirits and were fated with Buddhism. If he could convert them, it was better than an ignorant spiritual monster who didn't know the world of humans and didn't know anything about the mortal world. It was better than harming people without knowing anything. It was really a great ideal. He was really doing it to save all living beings. When Huiji heard that Ning Shu wanted to eat, he didn't know why, but when he saw her like this, he inexplicably thought of her. When he saw an unscrupulous woman, his heart was so tired. Huiji went to Ning Shu to cook a bowl of vegetarian noodles. Ning Shu sat in the pavilion and shook her legs. When she saw the vegetarian noodles, she picked up her chopsticks and started eating. The noodle soup is quite delicious. Is it chicken soup? Ning Shu asked as she sucked on the noodles. Huiji was speechless. Amitba. The soup made from wild mushrooms is not chicken soup. Monks don't kill. Huiji had lived for so long and had long cultivated self-restraint. He explained to Ning Shu and didn't take Ning Shu's words to heart. He just treated it as a mountain spiritual monster who had just transformed and was similar to a baby. However, this personality, it needed to be polished. It seemed that she wasn't someone who could sit still and meditate. As Ning Shu ate the noodles, she said to Huiji, "I want to go out for a walk." "How have you been all these years? Haven't you walked through the mortal world?" "Amitba. I naturally walk through the mortal world. I have to enter the mortal world to save the world. It's just that you have just transformed. There are many things in the mortal world that you don't know. You don't know about the greed, anger, stupidity, hatred, love, and evil desires of the mortal world. Moreover, your appearance will attract the covetous of some evil people," Huiji said. "If you want to join my Buddhist sect, I will accept you as my disciple." Ning Shu supported her head and said, "If I don't experience greed, anger, stupidity, hatred, love, and evil desires, how can I become a Buddha? I'm just afraid that you will be blinded by the mortal world." Huiji frowned. This spiritual monster. "If I'm blinded by the mortal world, you can come and save me. Let me turn back from the sea of suffering," Ning Shu said with a smile. "When the time comes, I will definitely listen to Master and turn back to the shore." Brat. This feeling emerged in Huiji's heart. Ning Shu made a proper Buddhist bow. "Thank you for your kindness, Master. If it wasn't for Huiji, there wouldn't be Tao Yao." Huiji stroked his beard. "Then you are my disciple." "I want to go out for a walk," Ning Shu said. If she didn't go out, how could she meet Li Hui? How could she send warmth to Li Hui? Huiji, it felt like all the words he said before were in vain. However, spiritual monsters who transformed were all babies. They were all temperamental and didn't know good or evil. Huiji patiently said, "It's not that I don't want you to go out. It's just that the outside world is something you can't deal with right now. You can become a lay disciple first." "Monk, is it really okay for me to be a woman in your temple?" Ning Shu asked. "We are all living beings, regardless of gender. Only those who have evil in their hearts would look at others with eyes blinded by the mortal world," Huiji said calmly. He was practically glowing from head to toe. Ning Shu, fuck, why does it sound like he's saying that she's blinded by the mortal world? He definitely wasn't talking about her. Although she was full of the scent of the mortal world. Ning Shu's heart surged with a sour feeling. There was guilt, discomfort, and an indescribable feeling of dependence. In Tao Yao's heart, Huiji really was like a father. Ning Shu nodded. "Alright, I'll stay here for a while before leaving. Master, please take care of me." She had even become Huiji's disciple. She was inferior to him for a lifetime. In the past, they had interacted as equals. Now, when she saw Huiji, she still had to bow. Chapter 2069. Huiji was already prepared to talk to this peach blossom demon until dawn, but the other party immediately agreed. This temper. It was a little bad. "Alright, from tomorrow morning onwards, you will do morning lessons with me. Do you want to stay in the peach blossom forest or find a room to stay in?" Huiji stood up and patted his old waist. "Of course I want to sleep on the bed. I'm a little tired of living in the peach blossom forest for so long," Ning Shu said. "Shouldn't peach blossoms be gentle? Shouldn't it be like those scholars who recited that it was suitable for a family? So direct?" Huiji could only attribute it to the wild spirit of the mountain that had not been removed and did things according to its heart. There are some etiquette in the human world that you still have to learn. Since you want to enter the world, you should integrate into the mortal world, Huiji said gently. "Thank you for your guidance, Master." "Master, go and rest. Don't stay up late, you will have dark circles," Ning Shu said. Huiji was really tired. His heart was tired. It was similar to that arrogant woman. Could it be that he was the reincarnation of a woman? Huiji, what hatred! Ning Shu found a side room and settled down. Then, she sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate. What she cultivated was a secret book suitable for the cultivation of plant spirits. She had a lot of secret books in her hands. Usually, she would use peerless martial arts. However, Ning Shu tested it. Cultivating peerless martial arts was not as useful as cultivating a secret manual specially designed for plants. Moreover, it gathered spirit energy faster. Ning Shu opened her eyes. Her hand turned into vines that crawled all over the room. However, the spirit energy was also used up. In order to conserve spirit energy, she could only use them one by one. Ning Shu retracted her vines and raised her head to look at the sky. She felt that there was always a dark cloud above her head that followed her like a shadow. Who knew when a bolt of lightning would strike down? This feeling was really terrible. Which human had a dark cloud above their head? They were too biased. Ning Shu only dared to think in her heart. What if another bolt of lightning struck down? He was covered in golden light, but she had a dark cloud above her head. Although spiritual monsters had some strength, the restrictions on them were quite strong. If Ning Shu were to run over and kill the blessed Li Hui now, he would definitely be punished by the heavens. Fuck. Initially, Ning Shu thought that she was here for a vacation. At first, Ning Shu felt that her mission was really simple. Wasn't he just a poor scholar? But the heavens were helping him. Was she really not in a strange stories from a Chinese studio? It was really like a story that required women to sacrifice themselves for men. When a man was poor, he would have a beautiful demon to give him warmth. When he was rich, he would have a rich young lady and a princess. The demon would even become his protective talisman, reaping all the benefits. Pure fantasy. Ning Shu did not dare to put his hands on his hips and curse the heavens. He could only cultivate silently. Then, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. It seemed that he had just fallen asleep when he heard a loud bell ring. Ning Shu sat up straight. It was time for the morning lesson. Ning Shu drank a mouthful of water and was about to go to the main hall when someone knocked on the door. A novice monk outside said, "Junior brother, it's time for the morning lesson." Ning Shu nodded. When he reached the main hall, all the monks looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu was a beautiful girl. When such a girl appeared in the temple, the monks all whispered to each other. When some of the younger monks saw Ning Shu's face, they immediately shrank back as if they had been scalded. Their faces turned red. Ning Shu calmly found a futon and sat down. Huiji said loudly, "This is Bodhi." Alright, even the name was changed. Ning Shu did not have any objections. Previously, she did not tell Huiji what her name was. Now, she gave herself the name Bodhi. One flower, one world, one leaf, one Bodhi. Ning Shu clasped her hands together. "Thank you, Master." "Master, this is a little inappropriate." A middle-aged monk frowned and said. Huiji said calmly, "What's inappropriate about it? Living in the world is just a matter of appearance. It doesn't matter whether one is a man or a woman. What's important is the heart of Buddha." "Bodhi, don't you think so?" Huiji asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu clasped her hands together. "Master, you are right. Alright, let's start the morning lesson." Huiji closed his eyes and started chanting. All the monks chanted together. The sound of chanting spread throughout the main hall. It was low and deep, forming a special aura. Ning Shu felt a warm thing enter his body. It should be the Buddhist light. Bathed in the Buddhist light, Ning Shu could not feel the dark clouds above his head. It really gave people a strong impulse to become a monk. Huiji had the golden merit light and directly chased the dark clouds away. The dark clouds above his head gave people a really depressing feeling. Ning Shu closed her eyes and immersed herself in the scriptures. Her heart was calm. After the morning class, Ning Shu went to the temple's cafeteria for breakfast. The monks, who had been instilled with the idea that women were fiercer than tigers, immediately hid far away when they saw Ning Shu, allowing Ning Shu to take the food first. Ning Shu realized that Huiji's way of health was to be hungry. To be precise, he only ate half of every meal. Huiji said to stuff his stomach full. If he couldn't eat anymore, that would be greed. Ning Shu transformed into a human and stayed in the temple. At first, the monks were not used to Ning Shu, a girl who suddenly appeared. But as time passed, they got used to ignoring her. She learned a lot of scriptures from Huiji. That was how willful her memory was. Huiji also brainwashed Ning Shu, saying that Ning Shu had the root of wisdom and shouldn't think about the evil fate in the mortal world. Studying Buddhism was the right thing to do. Ning Shu said, "Master, I want to enter the world." Huiji didn't say anything. He just told Ning Shu to be careful. He said that people's hearts were sinister and that etiquette was broken. She had to be careful. Then, is human nature good or evil? Ning Shu asked. Huiji said kindly, "Of course, human nature is evil. Babies don't know what's right and wrong. They don't know what's good or evil. Postnatal education is to guide them to be good. If human nature is good, why would they need to be guided? When you walk in the mortal world, you just have to remember that human nature is evil. It's just that some people are guided to be good and some people don't succeed." Ning Shu nodded. "I understand. Master, you're right. Enter the world to save people. If you can help, do it." You also have to remember to protect yourself. If you can't even convert yourself, how can you convert others? Huiji said calmly. Ning Shu nodded. Master, you're right. Since ancient times, there have been many men and women. Don't fall into the tribulations of love and lose your own heart. Moreover, you're a mountain spirit. Humans and demons have different paths. Those who are not of our race will be killed. You have to remember your identity. Ning Shu said, Master, you're right. Huiji was speechless. Huiji didn't know if the girl had listened to him. He said, Go. Ning Shu said in surprise, Master, aren't you going to give me some money or something? Beg for alms. Since you want to enter the world, you have to feel the pain of the world. Huiji gave Ning Shu a bowl for begging. No, for begging. Chapter 2070. Ning Shu looked at the alms bowl and asked, Why isn't it a golden alms bowl? Why would you use a golden alms bowl to beg for alms? Such a flashy action isn't a Buddhist disciple. Huiji said, Begging for alms is to let you feel the pain of the world. The lower you stand, the more you can understand. What if someone has evil intentions towards me if I go to beg for alms with my appearance? Ning Shu asked again. You have to bear the burden of being beautiful when you are born beautiful, Huiji said. Back then, wasn't he also wanted to do that? Furthermore, he was still a child. If I go out like this and provoke someone to have evil intentions towards me, what is this action of mine? Is it like Buddha cutting his flesh to feed the eagle, sacrificing himself and attracting evil thoughts in people's hearts? Ning Shu asked. Huiji was speechless. Why do you always talk back? It's worrying. What you are doing is not good, Huiji said. Ning Shu nodded. The so-called good is to use the interests of the masses as the standard. If it goes against the interests of the masses, then my actions are evil. If my interests go against the interests of the masses, then I am not kind. Huiji was silent for a moment. If there is no conflict of interest, harming others is evil. What if there is a conflict of interest? Ning Shu asked. There is only one position, Huiji said. What if I want to destroy the world and then my strength increases? Ning Shu asked. Of course that is evil. What feud does the world have with you? Huiji said. But my interests are guaranteed, while the interests of the majority of people are not. Is this evil? Ning Shu retorted. Huiji asked, Why must you destroy the world so that your strength can increase? Because I want to. What a worrying child. Alright, take the things and go. If you don't want to go, stay in the temple and cultivate Buddhism with me, Huiji said. There are some principles that you don't have to distinguish. Use your heart to make a choice. I'd better go out and take a look. Ning Shu took the bowl and looked at it. Did you use this? No, it's new, Huiji said. Master, I'm leaving now. Take care of yourself. Ning Shu turned around and turned into an old woman with white hair. She had no teeth in her mouth and her face was full of wrinkles. She didn't look like a beauty at all. Ning Shu felt that being able to transform into whatever he wanted was a characteristic of monsters. Although there was a dark cloud above his head, he could still transform into whatever he wanted. This skill was simply too amazing. This skill was given to demons because there were humans who needed demons to turn stone into gold for them. They could create many things that they wanted, such as fertile land, luxurious mansions, beautiful servants. Ning Shu coughed and held the bowl in his hand. He said to Huiji in a hoarse voice, Master, can you give me something to eat? This old lady has been starving for half a month. Huiji put 2 copper coins in the bowl. Remember the rules of Buddhism when you go out. Don't be too reckless and arouse suspicion. Don't reveal your identity to others. Do you understand? Ning Shu put away the 2 copper coins and said, "Master, I'll remember." Huiji took off the Buddha beads on his wrist and handed them to Ning Shu. "These are the Buddha beads that have always been with me. Take them with you. With the blessing of the Buddha's light, you will be safer." Ning Shu waved his hand and said, "No need. Master, you should keep them for yourself. I have my own ability." Huiji didn't force him and said, "You are a mountain spirit. Don't do anything outrageous. Otherwise, you will be struck by lightning like when you transformed." Ning Shu rolled her eyes and looked at the dark clouds above her head. She felt that a bolt of lightning would strike her head at any moment. "Master, I'll be leaving," Ning Shu said. Huiji nodded. Ning Shu waved his hand. "Go. I'm really leaving." Ning Shu walked out and looked back at Huiji. Huiji waved his hand. Ning Shu asked, "Master, are you really not going to give me some money?" Huiji was speechless. "Go." Huiji waved his hand. Ning Shu didn't want to use this ability. He felt that if he used it too much, he would definitely return it when the time came. Ning Shu walked out of the Wuxia temple in the appearance of an old woman. She hummed a tune along the way and searched for the world's origin. Even the dark clouds above her head couldn't stop Ning Shu from jumping for joy. She turned around with her hands behind her back. With a tap of her finger, she set up a barrier above the Wuxia temple. If the Wuxia temple encountered any danger, the barrier would envelop it. Then, Ning Shu went down the mountain. This world was similar to the one she came from. Counting the time, it had been more than 100 years. She couldn't see her old acquaintances anymore. Furthermore, the demonic sect didn't seem to exist anymore. It didn't seem to have disappeared. Instead, it had moved outside the pass. Ning Shu held the alms bowl and walked into the town in ragged clothes. Here, the client met Li Hui. Li Hui should be in the village around the town. Li Hui was from a poor family with a clean record. Ning Shu walked to the bun shop and prepared to take out a copper coin to buy a vegetarian bun. Since she was a Buddhist disciple, she should eat vegetarian food. The client didn't eat meat either. The boss of the bun shop saw Ning Shu and wanted to chase her away. However, when he saw the copper coin, he smiled and gave Ning Shu a vegetarian bun. Ning Shu sat on the side of the street and ate a bun. She held the alms bowl in one hand and sized up the people coming and going. She felt that some changes had happened in this world. The spiritual energy seemed to be abundant. In the past, it was just a martial arts world. Now, there were monsters. This was developing into a fantasy world. She didn't know if there were other monsters in this world. Fox spirits, ginseng spirits, etc. Ding! A copper coin jumped into Ning Shu's alms bowl. Ning Shu saw a maid throw the money into her alms bowl. Ning Shu smiled and said, "Thank you. Our young miss feels sorry for you." The maid said with her hands on her waist. Ning Shu looked at the sedan and saw a young miss with half of her face exposed. Ning Shu thanked her. "Thank you, young miss. I'll recite a Buddhist scripture for you." Ning Shu silently recited the prayer scripture and then accepted the copper coin with a clear conscience. "Here you are. Our young miss sees that you know how to repay kindness. This pastry is for you." The maid gave Ning Shu a handkerchief with the pastry wrapped in it. Ning Shu took the handkerchief and put the pastry in the alms bowl. She returned the handkerchief to the maid and said, "Take your young miss and leave quickly. If you give me the pastry, more people will come to ask for it later." This. The young maidservant looked around and saw that many beggars were looking in this direction and were coming over. The maid was shocked. She quickly returned to the sedan and said something to her young miss. Then, she asked the sedan bearers to carry the sedan away. Seeing that their target was gone, these beggars surrounded Ning Shu and wanted to snatch Ning Shu's food. Chapter 2071. Ning Shu ate the pastry in a few bites and then glided away. Pretending to be an old woman was not as useful as pretending to be a monk. Ning Shu pretended to be an old monk with a white beard. He held a bowl in his hand and then went from house to house begging for food, begging for alms. If the owner gave him a bite to eat, Ning Shu would recite a prayer. If not, then forget it. Ning Shu left the town and went all the way to the village. Of course, he was going to Li Hui's village. Then he walked to an ordinary farmer's house. From afar, he could hear a sharp and harsh voice cursing, "What the hell are you doing cooped up at home all day long? You don't do anything and think you can become the top scholar. Your brother works in the fields every day on such a hot day. He is so oily from the sun. You lie at home all day long. It would be strange if a trash like you can become the top scholar. You dress up like a dog and recite poems every day. You don't even look at yourself. Your heart is higher than the sky. You won't be able to become a high school student. You will starve to death as a peasant." Ning Shu listened to the farmer's woman's curses and finally understood that Li Hui would have a meteoric rise in the future. He let his brother divorce this woman and found a young and beautiful woman for his brother. Li Hui, who was in the house, heard his sister-in-law's curses. This kind of thing happened almost once a day. No, almost 3 times a day. When it was time to eat, she would find all kinds of reasons to bury him. It was good that he could not eat. Although it was not a matter of a day or two, every time Li Hui heard his sister-in-law's curses, his heart would be filled with anger. It made him unable to read his book. It was really hard to imagine how a woman could be so vicious. She did not have a bit of a woman's character. Women should be gentle, considerate, and talented. Shouldn't they be able to add fragrance to his sleeves? Beautiful like a fairy, overflowing with talent, noble and unparalleled. This is what a woman should be like. Ning Shu watched as Li Hui's eldest sister-in-law cleaned the chicken coop while cursing indignantly. Then, she used a knife to chop the pigweed. Her mouth didn't stop, and her hands didn't stop either. She worked very quickly. Ning Shu stood outside the courtyard and knocked on the door. The eldest sister-in-law wiped her hands on her apron and muttered, "Who is it?" "Amitba." Ning Shu held the bowl in one hand and bowed with the other. Benefactor. In this era, ghosts and gods were still revered. Seeing Ning Shu, the sister-in-law immediately shouted, "Master." Ning Shu said, "I came here to beg for alms and heard some noise." The eldest sister-in-law's tanned skin was a little red. She was scolding her younger brother-in-law just now. "Master, I don't have anything good at home. I only have a few sweet potatoes." "Madam, give them to you." The eldest sister-in-law took the bowl in Ning Shu's hand and went into the house to put in a few boiled sweet potatoes. Ning Shu chanted Amitba and read a passage of scriptures to the eldest sister-in-law. Then, he said, "If the family is peaceful, everything will prosper. Quarreling will harm people's luck and increase their hostility. It will also cause the person being scolded to have a venomous heart. Benefactor should not speak too fast to avoid planting a seed of disaster." Although it felt good to scold, what was the use? If it was Ning Shu, he would directly praise this guy to death. He would provide good food and drink, and no one would be able to get a handle on him. Even if it wasn't good in private, no one would believe you even if you said it out loud. Even if the younger brother-in-law really became rich in the future, there would be no reason for him to mention that his brother had divorced his wife. In this era, reputation was important. If one wanted to be an official, they had to have a good reputation. Of course, they also had to have good looks. If they were ugly, they wouldn't even be able to be an official. Since ancient times, everyone was obsessed with looks. The eldest sister-in-law was a little helpless. She didn't want to quarrel, but this younger brother-in-law was really a cold-hearted person. Other than eating, he usually stayed at home or went out for an entire day and didn't come back. He didn't care about the family. The eldest sister-in-law was like a mother. She also wanted to be like a mother. But this younger brother-in-law really made her feel bad. Moreover, he looked down on her. Li Hui heard the door suddenly become quiet. He vaguely heard people talking at the door. When he opened the door, he saw his eldest sister-in-law talking to a monk. Li Hui had a good impression of monks. Previously, living Buddha Changsho of the Wuxia temple had predicted that he would be rich in the future. Now, a monk had appeared. If this monk could say that he would be rich in the future in front of his sister-in-law wouldn't keep quarreling. "Greetings, master." Li Hui walked over. Ning Shu cupped his hands. This was the first time he was observing Li Hui at such a close distance. His facial features were regular and he had a gentlemanly temperament. With one look, he felt that this might be a golden phoenix that flew out of a farmer's house. Yes, a golden phoenix guy. Moreover, Li Hui had a lot of luck. When Ning Shu was sizing up Li Hui, Ning Shu felt that the dark clouds above her head seemed to be brewing lightning. If she were to attack Li Hui, she was afraid that a bolt of lightning would strike her head. This kind of person was the legendary benefactor. Wherever he went, he would feel like he was being protected by the gods. Ning Shu said, "Benefactor is good." Ning Shu saw Li Hui's dignified appearance, as if he was waiting for praise. He couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Was it possible that anyone who had some cultivation and knew a little about physiognomy would be praised as a dragon or a phoenix among men? Ning Shu said to his sister-in-law, "This young master will definitely be outstanding in the future. In the future, this young master will take good care of you and repay you." His sister-in-law looked doubtful. Li Hui almost vomited blood. It was certain that he would be outstanding, but to repay his sister-in-law. Li Hui's heart was very uncomfortable. His sister-in-law treated him like this, and he still wanted to repay her. Li Hui was someone who could even abandon someone who had done him a favor, not to mention someone who had been insulting him. Ning Shu saw that Li Hui's expression was not good and chuckled. Li Hui was angry, but he couldn't blame a monk. Moreover, the other party had said that he would be outstanding, but why did he feel so sick of it? Ning Shu said Amitba, and then said to his sister-in-law, "Benefactor, you must cultivate your moral character. You must not talk too much." "Thank you, great master." The sister-in-law hurriedly clasped her hands together. Ning Shu said Amitba and turned to leave. She silently looked up at the dark clouds above her head and rolled her eyes. Only the dark clouds would not leave her. After Ning Shu left, the atmosphere between the sister-in-law and the sister-in-law became very strange. Li Hui went back into the house. The sister-in-law endured it and didn't say anything. But when she was working, she used a lot of strength, wanting to vent the discomfort in her heart. Li Hui saw that his sister-in-law didn't scold him anymore, and felt that the monk's words were useful. He suppressed the displeasure in his heart. Li Hui thought about the approaching autumn examination and was very worried. If he missed it, he would have to wait a few years for the next one. He had already passed the previous examinations. Chapter 2072. Li Hui couldn't figure it out. He had reduced the taxes for his family, but his sister-in-law still scolded him every day. Did he not do anything for his family? He hated this kind of woman. In the future, his wife would definitely not be this kind of woman. Li Hui sighed. Where could he get the money to go to the capital? Did he really have to compromise with the landlord in the village and marry his extremely fat daughter? It was too insulting. Ning Shu ate the boiled sweet potato. It tasted pretty good and was very sweet. Ning Shu recited a prayer for Li Hui's sister-in-law. Then, he turned into a beautiful woman and touched his face. However, it was not Tao Yao's face, but another face. Ning Shu sat on a tree branch and looked in the direction of Li Hui's house. As long as she was here, Li Hui would definitely appear. This was an opportunity. After the old monk left, Li Hui was worried about the money in the capital again. He took out his bright clothes and put them on. He took out a folding fan and prepared to go out. When the sister-in-law saw Li Hui like this, she knew that he was going out. Her heart was filled with anger. She felt like she was her brother-in-law's servant. She had never said a good word to him. However, the sister-in-law silently endured it. Although she didn't know if she could succeed, the master said that quarreling would hurt her luck. Li Hui looked at the town and passed by the tree where Ning Shu was. When Li Hui passed by, she gently jumped down and passed by Li Hui as if nothing had happened. At first, Li Hui didn't notice it. Then, he couldn't move his eyes away. He quickly walked to Ning Shu's side and said, "I am Li Hui. May I know where you are going? You don't seem to be a local." Ning Shu turned around. Her face was like a peach blossom. Her facial features were different from Tao Yao's, but she was still very beautiful. Li Hui took a look and quickly lowered his head. His ears were red. Ning Shu smiled and said, "I live in the mountains. My father is a hunter. This is my first time out. I guess I got lost." A hunter's daughter. Li Hui looked up and down at Ning Shu. She had a good figure, a good face, and an outstanding temperament. Moreover, the clothes she was wearing didn't look like those of a hunter's family. Li Hui said, "If that's the case, why don't you let me send you home?" "Do you know where my home is?" Ning Shu asked. Li Hui looked at the woman in front of him. Her eyes were as bright as stars. Her small lips were like cherry blossoms, and there was a fragrance coming from her body. He felt that she was nothing more than a fairy descending to the mortal world. "I grew up here and am familiar with many places. Mrs. Father must be anxious." Ning Shu shook his head. "My father was actually killed by dumb insect a long time ago." Li Hui asked again, "Then do you live alone?" Ning Shu nodded. Li Hui insisted on sending Ning Shu home. With a wave of his hand, Ning Shu built a thatched hut deep in the mountains. Ning Shu took Li Hui around. It was a mountain road, so it was not easy to walk. Li Hui's feet were covered in blisters. It was clearly spring, but his whole body was sweaty and sticky. It was very uncomfortable. However, the beauty was not panting at all. She looked very relaxed. Li Hui could only endure it. He could not leave the image of a weak scholar in front of the beauty. "I found it, I found it." Ning Shu pointed at the thatched hut. The thatched hut was surrounded by a fence. The fence was surrounded by morning glory flowers, and it was decorated with small purple morning glory flowers. There were some vegetables planted in the vegetable field at the entrance. There was a stream in front of the hut. The thatched hut looked like a fairy. Li Hui opened his fan and fanned himself. He said, "I didn't expect this place to be like a fairyland. If I didn't know, I would have thought that Miss is a fairy." Li Hui looked at the beautiful Ning Shu. His eyes were shining. Ning Shu smiled and said, "In the past, my father and I depended on each other. But after my father passed away, I lived alone. My father said that the people outside are very bad. He didn't let me go out. It was my first time going out, and I got lost." Li Hui cupped his fist and said, "Since Miss has safely arrived home, then I will leave first." Ning Shu bowed. "Thank you for sending me back. Take care." Li Hui was speechless. He had come so far. Was she not going to invite him in for a cup of tea? Fortunately, he remembered this place. Although it was a thatched hut, the woman's clothes were not something an ordinary person could wear. She had a pure personality. "Then I will leave first." Li Hui took a few steps and turned back. He saw the girl return to her thatched hut without looking back. She didn't even look back. Li Hui could only comfort himself by saying that the girl was aloof from worldly affairs and didn't know the ways of the world. Then, he turned and left. He didn't go to town and return to his house. At night, he tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. His mind was filled with the beauty's voice and smile. She was an otherworldly woman, pure and beautiful. The next morning, Li Hui thought for a moment and took some fruits from home. He also picked a bouquet of flowers and walked to the thatched hut deep in the mountains. Ning Shu was drying the herbs and turned a blind eye to Li Hui's appearance until Li Hui called out, "Mississippi." Ning Shu turned her head and asked Li Hui, "You are?" Li Hui said, "I am the person who sent you home yesterday." Ning Shu suddenly realized, "So it's you. Young master, do you need something?" Li Hui took out the fruits and handed a bouquet of flowers to Ning Shu through the fence. Ning Shu didn't take it and asked, "What kind of flowers are these? I have seen many of them in the mountains, but I don't know the name of these flowers." Li Hui, This girl was really otherworldly. Was she not happy to be given flowers? Ning Shu expressed that he had been given flowers in the previous world, but at least they had good intentions. However, Li Hui's actions were full of calculation. Although these flowers don't have a name, they are very beautiful. "Miss, why don't you give them a name?" Li Hui immediately said. Ning Shu said, "Oh. In that case, young master, give it a name. Then it will be called Yen Ryu." Li Hui stared straight at Ning Shu's face as he said this. Then he realized that he was being rude and immediately lowered his head. "I was too impulsive. Miss, you can be called Yen Ryu." Ning Shu said, "My father always said that I was born beautiful. There are always some lechers who are impulsive." Li Hui, "But young master seems very kind. You are not the lecher that my father said. You even gave me something." "Thank you, young master." Li Hui secretly let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she was an innocent girl. Li Hui liked innocent girls. This kind of otherworldly fairy-like girl was what he liked. Li Hui wiped the sweat from his forehead. Ning Shu said, "Young master, come in and have a seat. Have a cup of water." Li Hui immediately cupped his hands, "Sorry to disturb you." When he walked in and saw the furnishings, he was shocked. Although it was a thatched hut outside, the tables and chairs inside were exquisitely carved. There were delicate porcelain vases with bouquets of flowers. It was incomparably elegant. Chapter 2073. The outside was a thatched hut, but the inside was a completely different world. It was not bad to say that they were from a wealthy family. The furniture was probably made of expensive wood, and the workmanship was also very good. Through a thin bead curtain, one could see that there was a bed in the room next door. The light yellow mosquito net was embroidered with delicate patterns. One look and one could tell that it was a woman's room. There was a faint fragrance in the room. It should be from burning incense. Wealthy families were particular about people. Ning Shu poured a cup of water for Li Hui and said, "My family is poor, so there is nothing to entertain you with. Just a cup of tea." Li Hui sat on the chair and smelled the fragrance on the chair. Could it be the expensive yellow pear wood? Furniture made of yellow pear wood? Poor family. Li Hui picked up the white porcelain teacup. The teacup was very simple and elegant. There were only a few strokes on it, but the artistic conception was distant. It seemed to be the work of a master. There was a touch of light green floating in the teacup, and a few wisps of smoke were emitting warmth. Li Hui took a deep breath and tasted the tea in his most stylish manner. Just a cup of tea. This was probably the best tea he had ever tasted. The tip of his tongue was slightly sweet, and the fragrance of the tea slowly seeped from his nose to his throat. His limbs and bones were indescribably relaxed and comfortable, and his mouth was filled with the smell of orchids. Li Hui's expression was calm, but his heart was not calm at all. This naive little girl was actually living in a wealthy family, but she did not know it herself. And when she said it was a cup of tea, it was a cup of tea. There was no expression on her face at all. Li Hui only felt that this place was full of celestial aura, as if it was the residence of an immortal. It made him feel comfortable all over. It was much better than his own home. There were only 4 bare walls, and he could smell the stench of the chicken coop and pig pen in the room. Everything here was very elegant, and it was deep in the mountains. There was no one to disturb him, no need to listen to the sarcastic sister-in-law at home, and there was a beauty to accompany him. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Li Hui's mind. His eyes were glued to Ning Shu's face. He only felt that this scene was so charming. Was he dreaming? Was he seeing a fairy in a dream? Ning Shu, go look at your cock. Thank you for coming to see me. You can take these things back. I have fruits like this at home, and there are many in the forest. Ning Shu said directly. Li Hui, she was innocent, but she didn't understand human feelings. Li Hui opened his fan handsomely and said, although you have this kind of thing, I won't take back what I've given away. If you don't want it, you can throw it away. Oh, Ning Shu said, and then really threw the fruit out. Li Hui was cursing in his heart. What was going on? He said he would throw it away and he really threw it away. Ning Shu saw Li Hui's expression and asked, can't I throw it away? You can throw it away. It's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. Li Hui felt that it was not an easy thing to make an otherworldly woman become affectionate, gentle, and considerate for love. However, this kind of girl was much better than those spoiled young ladies. Moreover, she was pure and innocent. There were advantages to not knowing anything about human affairs. If there was something wrong, she could just show it so that he wouldn't have to spend time guessing. Moreover, the autumn examination was about to begin. He had to prepare for it. Any of the items here would be enough for him to go to the capital for the examination. After mentally preparing himself, Li Hui no longer cared about this girl's displeasure at throwing away the things he had given her. Ning Shu didn't say anything. She propped up her chin and looked at the calculation in Li Hui's eyes. Li Hui probably thought of everything in this house as his now. Li Hui saw that the girl was staring at him. Her pure eyes seemed to be able to see through his secret thoughts. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed and angry. Miss, is it safe to live alone in this deep mountain? Li Hui tried to find a topic to talk about. Ning Shu directly said, it's very safe. My father taught me hunting skills. Normal wild beasts can't do anything to me. Last time, I even killed a wild boar. That beast was so big and had long fangs. However, I still killed it. But the meat was too smelly, so I threw it away. Li Hui was first surprised that a weak little girl could kill a wild boar. However, when he heard that the wild boar was thrown away just like that, he felt a little heartache. A wild boar was about 50 kilograms, close to 200 kilograms. It was all meat, and she threw it away just like that. Li Hui didn't get to eat anything with oil at home. Throwing away a wild boar like that still made Li Hui, who ate coarse grain every day, feel a burst of pain in his heart. She really was a prodigal. However, if she didn't squander, she wouldn't be so pure. Squandering definitely meant that the gaps between one's fingers were wide. More or less, some would leak out. It was enough for her to use. He didn't know which hunter was so rich that he could buy so many things for his daughter. Or did the rich hide in the deep mountains and forests? Li Hui drank his tea and saw that there were pastries on the table. These pastries were exquisitely made. Even the pastries of the rich families in town couldn't be compared to them. He asked in surprise, you made these pastries? Yes, I made them. Ning Shu admitted. She didn't let Li Hui taste the pastries. It was a perfect example of what it meant to be ignorant of the ways of the world. Li Hui suddenly felt stifled in his heart. With his status, he couldn't just eat things without the permission of the owner. I don't know how the food you made tastes. I really want to try it. Li Hui looked at Ning Shu with an aggressive gaze. Looking at a woman with such a gaze, the woman would usually feel embarrassed. Her heart would beat wildly, and she would be extremely shy. Ning Shu had a look of surprise. Do you really want to eat them? These pastries have been on the table for a few days. They're probably spoiled. If you want to eat them, I'll give them to you. Li Hui, he was so honest that it was a little unbearable. Li Hui changed the topic and asked, are you literate? I'm literate. When I have nothing to do, I have to study Buddhist scriptures and pray for my father, Ning Shu said. She didn't have to worry about food or clothing. She was literate. She even copied Buddhist scriptures when she had nothing to do. Her life was really comfortable. It made Li Hui a little jealous. He didn't have a good background. In order to climb up, he had to sacrifice a lot, dignity, and conscience. Some people didn't have to do anything and they could have a good life. Li Hui took a deep breath and suppressed the resentment in his heart. He said, then, I'll be leaving. Ning Shu nodded and stood up to send Li Hui off. Li Hui, didn't she have any reluctance? Didn't she try to persuade him to stay? Li Hui was a little sad and angry. Why didn't she follow the routine? Shouldn't she be reluctant to leave and try to persuade him to stay? She should at least let him stay for a meal. But this woman didn't say anything. She only drank a cup of tea from beginning to end. Moreover, she didn't even refill it. It was so awkward. Chapter 2074. Li Hui saw that he had already left the courtyard, but the girl didn't say anything to urge him to stay. This made Li Hui a little unwilling. If it was a beautiful girl with such wealth and no parents, she would be his ideal wife. She would be able to support him like the landlord in the village, and she was also beautiful. She was much better than the landlord's daughter. Li Hui was a beauty lover. Every day, he would read poems about beauties. In his mind, all he could imagine was a fairy-like lady. This lady completely matched his taste. Li Hui hardened his heart and twisted his ankle. However, he used too much strength and fell to the ground. Ning Shu looked at the dark clouds above his head. It seemed to be brewing lightning. He rolled his eyes. She was not the one who made Li Hui twist his ankle. He was the one who did it to himself. Li Hui was able to succeed because he was ruthless to others. When he had no choice, he would use himself and be ruthless to himself. Actually, it was normal for such a person to succeed. However, when they obstructed him, even if they had a close relationship with him, even if they had done him a favor, he would still kill them without mercy. Even if his own parents obstructed him, he would kill them. If he was too ruthless, he could not blame others for counterattacking. Ning Shu's mission was to work hard to complete the mission. He was entrusted with it, so he had to do it. The purpose of coming to this world was to complete the mission. After Li Hui twisted his ankle, it was a heart-wrenching pain. His ankle immediately became red and swollen. He had never suffered such pain since he was young. Ning Shu walked over and asked, "Young master, what happened to you?" Li Hui's expression was pained. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. He took a deep breath and said, "I twisted my ankle." Ning Shu looked at Li Hui's ankle. It was indeed red and swollen. His ankle was as big as his arm. It's quite serious. Ning Shu tilted his head and said, "How about this, I'll treat it for you." "Thank you, lady." Li Hui sighed. He had finally achieved his goal. However, Li Hui's face turned green again. Because this woman had brought him to the woodshed and not to her boudoir. There was dried grass on the ground. She made him lie on it. Li Hui suddenly felt that the injuries he suffered were not worth it at all. He could only sleep in the woodshed on the withered grass. Ning Shu said, I can only arrange for you to stay here because father said that no man can enter her boudoir. This dead hunter was still trying to make his presence known. Li Hui's heart felt like it was about to explode. Did this girl take her father's words as an imperial edict? She kept mentioning her father all the time. He didn't know when he would be able to replace the hunter's position in this girl's heart. I'll just bear with it for now. This kind of naive girl only knows one thing. Ning Shu said to Li Hui, who was sweating from the pain, I'm going to set your bones now. You have to bear with it. Bone setting can help you recover faster. It's just a little painful. Bear with it. You must bear with it. Ah! Li Hui was caught off guard and cried out in pain. Ning Shu looked at him with a surprised look. Li Hui was a little embarrassed. His glorious image. Ning Shu said, I've set your bones, but you need to rest for a while. How can you go back like this? Now Li Hui also understood this girl's routine. She said whatever she wanted to say. She didn't know what was tactful at all and couldn't take polite words seriously. So he said directly, I want to rest here for a while. You can rest assured that I won't cross the line. I'll only rest in the woodshed. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. His face was full of unwillingness and rejection. He asked, if you stay here, won't your family be worried? Won't they look for you? He wanted to live in a single girl's house. What was his intention? If it was the client, he would believe Li Hui's nonsense. After all, Li Hui had a glorious and magnificent image in the client's heart. Li Hui ignored Ning Shu's rejection and said directly, I used to live in my classmate's house. My family will only think that I'm in my classmate's house. It wasn't easy to find an opportunity. He wouldn't leave just like that. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. Li Hui didn't have a classmate who could spend the night with him. Even if he didn't go back, he didn't care whether his family would look for him or not. He was worried that something would happen to him. Well, you can live in the woodshed. You can't enter my room. My father said that strange men are not allowed to enter my boudoir, Ning Shu said. Li Hui hated the word father. Every time he opened his mouth, he would say it. Ning Shu closed the door of the woodshed and looked up at the dark clouds. He really wanted to give them the middle finger, but he held back. What if they struck him? It wasn't worth it to be struck by lightning. In the evening, Ning Shu prepared porridge and vegetables for Li Hui. It was a very bland food. I usually eat these things. I don't know if you're used to it. Who cares if you're used to it? Li Hui thought there would be some more sumptuous meal, but it turned out to be porridge and vegetables. Li Hui's mouth twitched. He said directly, I'm used to it. Ning Shu turned and left. It was still spring, and it was very cold at night. Li Hui hugged his body tightly and curled into a ball. Why didn't that girl bring a blanket for him? She really didn't know how to handle people. Li Hui pulled the withered grass on his body. Only through hardship could one rise above others. He had to bear with it first. Bear with it, bear with it. But it was so cold. Li Hui's ankle hurt and his body was cold. It was really unbearable. Li Hui regretted using self-harm to stay. This beauty looked beautiful, but she didn't know how to care about others. However, Li Hui's heart burned with a strong desire to fight. The more difficult it was, the better. His client, Tao Yao, was always considerate of Li Hui and treated him like an ancestor. He was considerate in every aspect, cooking and washing. Usually, he would accompany Li Hui to enjoy the flowers, snow and moon. They would sit in the courtyard and talk about the stars and the moon, from poetry to life ideals. Li Hui's favorite thing was to point out the world. Whenever he told Tao Yao, he would describe a magnificent future and the achievements he wanted to achieve. Every time, Tao Yao would look like a little fangirl, describing in detail how Li Hui would become such a person. Now, Ning Shu didn't even care about him. However, Li Hui didn't dare to be rash. He had to consider Ning Shu's feelings. In the past, he slept in a boudoir with a high bed and soft pillows. But now, he could only curl up in a pile of weeds. If Li Hui didn't covet anything from Ning Shu, he wouldn't have to compromise like this. People with principles lived hard lives. But people who were difficult to talk to wouldn't dare to bully them. They would take care of their feelings. If it was an unprincipled compromise, who would care about your thoughts and feelings? Chapter 2075. She was a good person. She didn't care about anything. She was just waiting for others to bully her. If she didn't bully her, she would feel bad. If your efforts were worthless in the eyes of others, this was not kindness, this was self-deprecation. Ning Shu sat in the house and cultivated. His hand turned into a vine. This secret manual was quite good. The vine's binding ability was very strong. If one vine was not enough, he would use 2. If 2 were not enough, he would use 10. At most, he would use more spiritual energy. Ning Shu cultivated while using his spiritual energy to check on Li Hui in the woodshed. Li Hui's body was curled up into a ball, hugging his arms. His body was trembling. He was cold. In addition, the windows of the woodshed were broken. There was nothing to block the wind. The night's cold air entered the woodshed, causing Li Hui to shiver. Ning Shu curled his lips. She didn't hurt Li Hui. On the contrary, she saved him and even took him in. As for Li Hui's cold, sorry, I'm a monster. I can't feel the cold, so I should think that humans can't feel the cold either. Hee hee. Lightning can't strike him. Ning Shu secretly raised his middle finger. If you have the ability, go and strike those bad people. There are many bad people in the world. Why is there only one monster? She looks so gentle and kind. How can she do bad things? The next day, Ning Shu went to see Li Hui with a glowing face. He saw that Li Hui's face was tired. He was so tired that even his eyes were a little dark. Young master, what's wrong with you? Does your ankle still hurt? Ning Shu asked. It hurts. Li Hui didn't dare to sleep for the whole night. If he fell asleep, what if he caught a cold? A cold was a serious illness. If he wasn't careful, it could take his life. Li Hui regretted that he refused to ask for a bed and quilt. In the end, he was frozen for the whole night. According to the normal routine, this girl should have realized that he was rude and felt guilty. He should have comforted her. Ning Shu looked at Li Hui's ankle and said, I'll help you rub it. Ning Shu rubbed Li Hui's ankle with great kindness. His ankle was blue and purple. Li Hui felt a pair of soft hands pressing on his ankle. It was warm and soft. Li Hui's mind swayed. He felt that the injury was worth it. Hiss. Before Li Hui could finish sighing in his heart, an intense pain directly made Li Hui suck in a breath. Ning Shu asked, Does it hurt? You need to massage it more to disperse the blood clots. It will heal faster. Li Hui hurriedly shook his head. It doesn't hurt. Hiss. Ning Shu held a kind heart and used a little more force. This way, he could rub away the blood clots. Li Hui was in so much pain that his face was covered in sweat. She still regretted hurting her foot. He could have used other methods. He should have let the girl hurt her foot so that he could stay and take care of her. He had been thwarted time and time again. Also, this lady was really otherworldly. Why didn't she feel embarrassed when facing a man like him? Did he really not understand the feelings between a man and a woman? Li Hui really wanted to stuff a handful of dried grass into his mouth. Otherwise, he would bite his tongue and commit suicide. It was too fucking painful. Ning Shu rubbed his foot for a while, then took out some herbs and applied them to his foot. He said, "Don't move around during this period of time." Li Hui directly said, "Miss, can you give me a blanket? It's really cold at night." At this time, the lady should have realized that she had been rude and should have helped him into the house. Ning Shu blinked his eyes, "But there are no extra blankets at home. After my father died, I burned everything to my father. Is it okay if there are extra blankets at home? My father said that no men are allowed to touch my things." Ning Shu silently said in his heart that he could not let this young master know that he was a peach blossom demon. Sometimes, Ning Shu's mental activities were deceiving people, deceiving the dark clouds in the sky to give a suitable explanation for his actions. In short, she did not harm Li Hui right now. She suppressed the malice in her heart and did not let anyone notice it. He only knew that she was Li Hui's benefactor, but she was a proud woman. If Li Hui wanted to get her heart and make her willingly take out something, it was understandable that he would suffer a little. Ning Shu's actions were just testing the bottom line. Was it fine as long as he did not harm Li Hui's life? He did not know if the other mountain spirits were staring at the dark clouds, but Ning Shu was quite unhappy. He had to show that he was willing to be monitored, and at the same time, he was in fear and trepidation. Without a quilt, it would not be warm at all. However, it was not bad to have a quilt. He hated the hunter's father. Ning Shu took out a set of well-made quilt covers that were incomparably smooth to the touch. The embroidery on them was vivid and lifelike. Li Hui felt that just this quilt cover alone could be worth a lot of money. And so many things were burned, what a pity. What a pity. He really did not know how expensive the daily necessities were. This kind of woman who had never suffered and was otherworldly was really something. Li Hui did not know what to say. Even if it was not his own things, just hearing it made his heart ache. She really did not care about money. He was worried to death just for a little money. In the future, he could not let this woman squander money like this. Giving me such a good quilt cover, isn't it a bit wasteful? Li Hui asked hesitantly. Ning Shu's face was full of surprise and confusion. It's just a quilt cover. Why is it wasteful? Damn, even the landlords in the village did not have the courage to say such a thing. This woman probably did not know how expensive the quilt cover was, so she did not care. She did not care about money, and he needed money. It was a match made in heaven. Gongzi, when can you go back? My father said that all men are bad. They only care about money and sex. My father doesn't allow me to interact with strange men. Ning Shu really wanted to chase Li Hui away. Her expression was full of disgust, and she didn't hide it at all. Li Hui, money and sex. Li Hui took a deep breath. Fortunately, his hunter father had died long ago. Li Hui hurriedly explained, "Miss, I am a person who has studied sage books. How can I do such a thing that goes against the way of a gentleman? I have never thought of taking advantage of you. Please don't think of me that way." Ning Shu's face was full of disbelief. Father said that men will do anything for beauty. Li Hui, what did that hunter father instill in this beauty? Why are all men bad people? There may be despicable people in this world, but I am definitely not one. I can point to the heavens and swear on this. Li Hui said. Ning Shu silently raised his head to look at the dark clouds. He wanted to test if Li Hui would really be struck by lightning if he swore. Ning Shu clasped his hands behind his back and smiled like a flower. Okay, then swear. Li Hui always felt that he was being tricked. He felt that something was not right. He wanted to swear, but shouldn't the other party stop him? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.